Heirs of House Pellenberg flaunt status, academy prestige, and obscene wealth. And Fernan, their black-haired golden boy, practically bathes in money. At the Empire's debate contest, his greed becomes legend overnight. Even while handling merchant reports, he still judges everyone like payroll trash. So his usual complaints about weak results sound hilariously self-important. Then, on a bright day, lightning drops the world's worst surprise on him. Fernan's consciousness slips, and a strange soul seizes the opening. Something red and unnatural wedges itself in, wearing possession like a joke. His mind wakes up inside that void, realizing the nightmare has started, and the smug prodigy suddenly wonders if he's about to get taken over. Possess? What kind of nonsense is this soul even spouting now? Because Fernan instantly catches the invasion trying to steal his body, so he claws back with the last scraps of mana left, and the arrogant parasite gets beaten down embarrassingly fast, except part of that thing still sinks into Fernan anyway, dragging in memories he can't even begin to recognize, while his eyes lock onto bizarre text nobody sane would trust, and his servant panics, seeing the young master barely standing. Then that cursed prophecy names Fernan as a future outcast, so the world's favorite rich brat suddenly looks very, very doomed. The prophecy hit Fernan Pellenberg like a verdict, worse than death, and he choked, because being expelled meant losing everything, especially his beloved money, and that panic was ugly. So he chased the strange soul through academy days, desperate to expose its reason, but every answer slipped away, leaving him stuck with stolen memories and zero closure. By the end, all he had learned was that the soul had wanted his body, and that little fact would have been impressive if it hadn't nearly ruined him, because the prophecy turned out absurdly accurate, and his fall from grace was already starting. Yet somehow he still profited off the disaster, though it left him miserable, meaning the curse had to stay real, if only to keep the rich brat doomed. So when asked about lessons, he could only answer same as always, then get offered coffee. Yes, the paperwork finally lands, and Fernan's hand seals the deal. While rumors swirl through the academy halls like gossip with expensive shoes, Fernan stays suspicious, reading the servant's concern as hidden trouble, because lately his mind keeps drifting, and the pattern is getting ugly. The attendant points it out, spacing out, forgetting himself, acting unlike before, so Fernan snaps back coldly, pretending lightning never turned his life into a circus. Even the servant dares to mention his reckless choices, then the lightning excuse, but Fernan's grin sharpens, because fortune rewarded those strange decisions after all. Then the shock drops. Ain't Armin really enrolled? And everyone freaks out, which leaves Fernan heading south for answers, while the servant chases the mess. The servant's coffee question lands, as Fernan stays stiff, suspicious, and rich, while the Imperial Academy drifts into view, its magic-built luxury looking annoyingly polished, and down in the southern wetland, he rides south to test those prophecies, because 3 futures are now carved into his skull, loud and impossible to ignore. The first ruins Fernan Pellenberg, the second bankrupts him, the third leaves him feral. So when that little mind movie says again, his face says absolutely not, except the homeless version of Fernan is already staring back from the wall, and beside that disaster, the demon apocalypse starts flexing like it owns the place. Then Ain't Armin appears as the golden answer, saving the world from it all, which is hilarious, since everyone in the Empire already knows exactly who he is. He turns out to be the founding emperor's descendant, which is absurdly inconvenient, and the prophecy keeps dragging Ain't Armin south, where trouble loves him most. His future reads like a bad novel, every page somehow aimed at him, so he rides after answers, because prophecies are easier to judge in motion. The catch? He is the center of it all, whether he likes it or not. Even the expulsion papers arrive, because authority always panics when destiny gets loud. Meanwhile, the prophecy's favorite victim keeps searching, and naturally everyone starts blaming him. Worse, the visions are fuzzy, so he only gets the broad disaster outline. Now the official story says demons are involved, and that should make sense somehow. Still, Ain't heads for the wetlands, hunting the hidden dungeon anyway. The founding emperor's sword theory gets dragged out, and Gardner Alphen Parson wears it like scripture, while Ain't Armin gets framed as the hero candidate, which is hilarious given his reputation, because he'd absolutely kill that smug attitude if the prophecy didn't need him so badly. Then blood on his chest ruins the mood, and suddenly even he wonders what bit him. Right before he remembers the croaker attack on the way to the dungeon, somehow faded, which means the monster probably ambushed him near that grotesque tree entrance everyone tiptoed around, and now he stands there connecting the dots, realizing the prophecy has been obnoxiously accurate so far, until he spots Ain't inside the Empire, making the whole situation feel way too early, because the blonde knight can only stare at the blood and wonder who sent this nuisance, while Ain't just gets blocked on sight, as if destiny didn't already make him the joke. The blonde knight freezes mid-confrontation, suddenly asking who this stranger even is, and the answer lands hard, because it's Fernan Pellenberg, air baggage and all, which makes the knight's casual tone look embarrassingly bold, considering the blood soaking his chest, since he insists it came from a croaker, that supposedly rare swamp nuisance everyone avoids. Then Fernan reveals a top-grade potion, gleaming like a tiny fortune in his palm, and explains it's absurdly better than 10 cheap bottles, just to twist the knife. So the knight finally recognizes the name and scrambles, suddenly far less smug than before, while Fernan calmly swats away the money talk, because apparently he doesn't need it, and the knight, now fully rattled, starts praising his bloodline like that fixes everything, so Fernan shrugs it off as a harmless investment, which is rich, literally. Fernan casually thanks the knight, while that prophecy talk quietly crushes his budget. Then the knight lectures him about trespassers, smug as ever despite the blood soaking his chest, so Fernan sends him off politely, while the knight suddenly sounds way too grateful, because Ain't has already vanished nearby. And Fernan's still stalking his trail. Deeper inside, the stone corridor proves the dungeon is real, not some convenient bluff, and Ain't calmly concludes the place was cleared. Though that confidence feels suspiciously premature, he spots the glowing lanterns, then starts wondering why the mana trace is missing entirely, until the answer lands embarrassingly hard, since the lanterns are permanent mana siphons, which makes Fernan look absurdly trusting, even as the prophecy keeps calling him naive, and now Ain't enters injured, exactly the kind of mess Destiny apparently loves. His body aches, so he gulps cheap potions, but nothing mends. He keeps staggering onward, because quitting now would be embarrassingly pathetic. Then Ain't spots the altar sword, and his eyes lock hard. The blade feels ordinary, yet it still yanks at his soul, so he reaches out, and Ain't grips the sword without hesitation. Light erupts through the chamber, making that ordinary weapon look theatrical. Then reality snaps, and Ain't is suddenly nowhere near the dungeon. Hez in the academy alley, tracking lingering magic like a bloodhound. That's enough for him to confirm the prophecies are real, obviously. And then Fernan drops the hammer, exiling him from House Pellenberg. Fernan's smug prophecy moment curdles fast, because ruin now sounds expensive. His own face says everything, as the heir realizes the future is cursed. Meanwhile, Ain't Armin gets labeled the prophesied hero, which is just perfect. Fernan sits there calculating, and suddenly even the mansion feels like a debt trap. His finger taps the table, because apparently doom still deserves a dramatic pause. Ain't keeps climbing the stock chart of destiny, and people keep getting nervous. The prophecy's hero clearly hates cheap tricks, making bribery look embarrassingly useless. Gardner watches that disaster unfold, already suspecting money won't buy this one. Even the cautious noble admits Ain't's a hard target, which is hilarious. Then Ain't casually pitches investment like a knife, and Fernan has no defense. Ain't corners Fernan on merchant style, and the money prince sounds rattled, while the retainer smugly reminds him his old money logic already failed. Because Ain't turns apocalypse talk into a ridiculous investment pitch, Fernan demands more details, already sweating through that expensive arrogance, and the servant warns guests are coming, like trouble politely knocking, which means Fernan's escape route just vanished again. Naturally, since academy dorms are sorted by rank, and the politics get uglier, with the top 10 landing in Ravidos Hall, leaving the rest behind, while the lower ranks get shoved into Bless Hall and forgotten, and Gardner's sword ego flares, proving even legends hate this setup. Debus Hall gets dragged as the Academy's embarrassing leftover tier, while Ain't jokes the late Emperor would strangle demon-loving idiots, and the Blue Spirit snaps back, blaming demon interference for the mess. Then Fernan panics, admitting weakness, which is somehow shocking, because this spoiled prince also helped kill imperial succession and redesigned the throne to rotate through 7 elector houses, after stripping Armin lands and assets, handing them to the Empire, leaving the house poorer, the sword arts ruined, and Fernan defensive, while Ain't still calls him talented and promises full restoration. Then Fernan wonders if the dead emperor planned this disaster all along. A mysterious visitor reaches Fernan, and even the spirit beside him goes still. He answers like some dignified elder, which is hilarious for that face. The door gives way, and suddenly Prophecy walks in wearing black confidence. Fernan freezes at the sight, because Ain't Armin has arrived uninvited again. Ain't plays polite, then starts treating Fernan like a business opportunity. The hallway is too crowded, so he drags the whole mess somewhere quieter. Fernan tries buying time, begging for 10 minutes to prepare himself. Ain't mocks the delay, acting like impatient royalty, then labels the newbies soft. Still, he grants 5 minutes and posts up at the dorms, waiting. The Blue Spirit loses patience and explodes over that ancient boomer. Fernan's title gets dragged out, and suddenly house prestige sounds absurdly expensive, while he fumes that money alone shouldn't summon a royal descendant. Obviously, then Ain't clocks the whole situation as some unpaid investment scheme, and casually points out the sword Fernan brought. Like that changes everything, because Fernan admits the blade just makes him feel less terrified, and mentions Gardner's ego. Ain't shrugs off the drama, claiming he only wanted a meal, not warfare. Fernan nearly bows to the pressure, but Ain't keeps acting outrageously generous. So they relocate to a private room, where Fernan starts auditing the menu, only for Ain't to judge him as soft, naive, and dangerously easy to squeeze, and Fernan ends up realizing this kid just wrecked him and cleaned him out. Ain't gets hit with a lofty graduation question and freezes. Fernan plays it classy, then admits House Armand dodges society, because rebuilding a ruined name sounds trendy. He says it's bizarre seeing one of them enroll, and confesses he's tired of fallen royal pity. Ain't fires back that Armians still count as royalty, which is adorable, really. Then Fernan blurts out his dream of becoming a royal knight, and the room suddenly respects him. Ain't notices the fire in his eyes, while Fernan starts awkwardly praising lineage and ambition. Meanwhile, the monastery report is already profiling Ain't like a dangerous asset. It labels him a blue-chip prize, too proud for flashy money, too stubborn for pressure. Fernan quietly realizes subtle charm beats blunt bribery, so he keeps the mask on, and right now, has stalking Ain't's life like a predator with a calculator. Ain't lands a ridiculous haul, already plotting to reel Fernan in, while the servant greets him like the young master somehow vanished again, and Ain't casually drops a familiar name, fishing for Bircheff's reaction, then reveals Louina Bircheff was the debt meeting he conveniently missed, making Fernan look like he forgot the world exists, which is priceless, because Bircheff was apparently waiting all day, then finally stormed off, and Ain't immediately decides pressure is better than bribery, so cruelly efficient, leaving Fernan rattled enough for the servant to worry over the damage, since a sudden headache hits him hard, like the possession is stirring, and that crimson eye flare screams this is getting dangerous fast. Fernan stares at prophecy fragments, and that already smells like disaster. Then the mysterious blue-eyed noblewoman enters, sword grace, making even Ain't stare. Her talent looks royal enough, but her heart hides something uglier. Break those shackles, and Shell spread her wings, then soar freely. The servant suddenly panics, begging Fernan to free her from Pellenberg. Fernan realizes that may be why Ain't despises him so much. Her expression hardens, because she remembers the debt meeting he skipped. Fernan's crimson gaze cracks, and the possession starts clawing back. The servant hovers nearby, watching his master's heartache turn uglier. Then the woman calls out Fernan's name, and everything freezes. Yesterday's humiliation still burns, and now debt is clinging to Fernan like poison, while that blue-dressed noblewoman coolly reminds him who really got stood up. The silence from the bars says plenty, because Ain't is judging him harder than speech, and Fernan can feel that irritation through the distance, which is never a good sign, because the Birchev family once guarded the north and carried Prince-Elector prestige, then monster waves wrecked everything, leaving them broke enough to auction their pride. Even their golden patent got sold off, and still the money pit kept widening, with Fernan's father refusing pity. The only help came from a desperate Fellenberg hand, but that rescue was pure profit play, turning Birchev's disaster into chained interest. So yes, they escaped annihilation, and now they get to pay forever. Rowena Birchev's profile drops, and Ain't instantly starts judging her, because her link to him means she can't dodge the consequences anymore, while the room hums with her polished nobility and his smug suspicion, and she apologizes for yesterday, pretending the whole missed meeting was accidental, but Ain't shuts that down fast, calling out the unfairness of her excuse. Then Rowena asks why he wanted to meet, and he refuses to play innocent, since he already knows she's baiting him. He wonders how to win her favor, only for the conversation to pivot into a joint class proposal, which he rejects. After she presses him about asking for her as a partner, he cuts her down, because partnering with him, in her arrogant little verdict, would be completely useless. The noblewoman dangles a 3-year partnership like it's a miracle deal, then casually turns it into sponsorship, and Ain't instantly smells the trap. He brushes off her classroom excuse, refusing the usual polished nonsense, because this isn't romance, it's business, and she knows it, so she admits scholarships, family obligations, and her painfully modest finances. While he flatly mocks the idea that sponsorship magically changes anything, she insists he has talent, but nobles usually don't cosplay as investors. Then Rowena Birchev reveals the real knife twist behind the offer. Their houses are entangled, though Pellenberg still outranks her honor, and she snaps back. Furious Head dare treat her like a lower family. Fernan grins at a proposal, already betting pride will cave first, while Runa's grudge, talent, and poverty make his smugness look expensive. Then he pivots to her sword dance, calling it graceful and unforgettable, so noble and alive that even Fernand's red eyes narrow with interest. That praise hits her like a stun spell, because he truly meant it, and his ridiculous poem about her blade makes her melt into panic, until she begs him to stop, except he clearly cannot, because he still lacks perfect words for that dazzling sword dance, and the sponsorship offer lands. 3 quiet years, interest waived, with graduation ending it immediately, and his demon partner Jab sealing the trap. Behind that smug smile, Rowena admits the conditions were impossible to refuse. Then the talk swings back to her sword dance, now treated like masterpiece material, while she spirals over his praise, because he still lacks words enough for beauty, and Fernand's face twists at the idea that this money grubber might actually mean it, because somehow he's pushing a scheme. And the household nanny is furious on principle, with the servant confirming Fernand's charm offensive, as if nobles calling that seduction is subtle, but ruinous not fooled. Staying suspicious even while the wavered interest sounds dangerously useful, then the reminder drops that Fernand ranks below her, which somehow makes him even bolder, as the message arrives that he wants Luina at once, not later, not politely, just urgently, and the final answer is pure stubbornness, because she's told to meet him at the training grounds, yet absolutely refuses to be ordered around. The servant keeps his cool, promising to ask the lady, while Rowena stiffens, because Fernand's already stirring trouble at the training yard, and nobody trusts his motives. Meanwhile, the whole academy worships Rowena as second-ranked, practically untouchable royalty, yet Fernand still has the audacity to frame her as barely above him, and he even admits her talent, which sounds generous until you hear the smug catch. She's thrown off by the partnership pitch, suspicious of every polished word, while he insists this isn't charity, just proof he can stand beside her. Then the real insult lands, because even 10th place earned him access, so Rowena finally concedes has skilled, though still miles from her league, and Fernand, delighted, dares her to try proving otherwise. Right there, Fernand opens the duel with smug politeness, practically begging her to blink first, and Rowena answers with a pressure burst that turns the whole floor into rubble, while he keeps smiling, dangling those polished words like a trap dressed as praise, because she refuses the bait and charges anyway, sword ready to cut his nonsense. Then Fernand twists space with a blue shockwave, casually wrecking her attack like it's routine, yet Rowena keeps advancing through the debris. Furious now that the arrogant pretty boy is serious, the classroom nearly implodes as his red sigils chew through the arena, sending everyone scrambling, and the crowd finally realizes he didn't just survive the training grounds, he bulldozed them. Rowena stares him down, forced to admit his skill is real, though still ridiculous, and Fernand just leans into the chaos, daring her to prove him wrong again. Rowena's sword rush hits Fernand's sigil storm, and the arena practically screams, but she freezes when that distant, black-haired noble barely looks impressed, because his red circle of magic keeps blooming, crushing every opening, and the floor buckles beneath them, proving this training was a massacre. The shocked girl finally realizes Fernand Fellenberg is no harmless pretty boy, since even his casual defenses shred reinforced stone like cheap paper. Now the whole crowd is spiraling, wondering if he hid everything on purpose, while Fernand stands there in designer confidence, radiating absurd amounts of mana. The logistics talk makes it worse, turning his power into a money machine, and that smug grin says hell by time, then ruin everyone's expectations. Fernand quietly decides the prophecy stays buried, because panic is bad for business, and the noble response is damage control, not honesty, which is almost charmingly crooked, so the messenger gets dismissed with promises of verification and a polite delay, while Fernand's smile says he already knows fear works better than brute force. Then Ain't's name lands like a warning, and the tension gets deliciously awkward, because even his own father's tone admits the boy has become surprisingly valuable, as the servant reports back and the estate starts moving with careful, nervous precision, while the old guard mutters that the black turtle still missed Fernand's real secret, forcing the investigator to back off, apologize, and promise another look at intelligence. And that leaves one brutal question hanging. What exactly do they think of Fernand? The noble investigator still doubts how Fernand found the magic stone mine, but guesses his intelligence squad might just specialize in ores and profit. Then the Golden Pillar gets named, that absurd little unit under Fernand, because he already knew fire affinity was never the real money play. So the estate orders verification, while quietly admitting the boy's brilliance, and the old guard starts praising how he outgrew expectations in veins and ores, which is hilarious, since they only now realize his obsession was deliberate, while Fernand's gaze shifts to Rowena Berchev, turning curiosity into reconnaissance, and the question mutates into romance rumors, because now everyone wants the gossip, but Fernand only cares about profit, power, and the next investment. The old guard starts prying at Fernand's cravings, and he smirks, because they've finally noticed his obsession was never random after all, just a very expensive strategy. And now they're awkwardly impressed. While Rowena Birchev gets dragged into the gossip machine like royalty, and the room instantly decides she and Fernand must be some scandalous pairing, but she keeps dissecting his nonsense. As if money rumors were predictable, then Fernand doubles down, treating the whole mess like a victory lap, because being called greedy is practically a compliment in his world, and he admits he loves money. Like that explains every disaster, which, horrifyingly, means the so-called money demon thinks nothing is impossible. Fernand's hatred score climbs fast, and Rowena wears the smugness like armor. Then she offers the reward, cool-eyed and merciless, as if money fixes everything. The box opens to an elixir and voucher, and suddenly this feels very expensive, because the mandrake root potion and company shop deal are obviously not charity, yet Fernand balks at repaying her, pretending sponsorship logic somehow matters, until he admits golden turtle gear is too valuable to call a gift, and Rowena catches him hesitating, deciding that means he agrees with her, so he frames her favor as cheap insurance against becoming some future beggar. Then he hammers in the contract threat, making Rowena's composure finally crack, and just like that, class becomes the next battlefield, with work waiting later. Even sponsorship still feels absurdly expensive, and Fernand hates it, because the so-called gift comes with enough value to spark paranoia, while Rowena smugly assumes her offer already trapped him nicely. Then the academy gossips drag Aunt Armand's missing lecture into focus, as his name hangs over the room like a problem everyone noticed, and the night lecture shifts into brutal sparring, where Gardner's prophecy starts shining, making him famous the moment his talent stops looking suspiciously ordinary, while the crowd mutters over Aunt's absence, as if that's surprising, because seeing Fernand Fellenberg here would already be shocking enough, and even the blonde noble's polite greeting can't hide the tension. The lecture room freezes as Ludger casually asks what the fuss is, and Fernand answers like a man already monetizing the conversation. Then the prince pivots straight to Aunt Armand, because of course he does, calling the old imperial bloodline obvious prey for his curiosity, while Fernand coolly explains that newcomers from centuries of absence are naturally interesting, and the empire's tangled history with Schwaben makes Aunt's legitimacy look dangerous, with Ludger openly admitting he's been watching Aunt too closely. How subtle. Fernand immediately clocks the red-haired noble as Varon Kalblunder, the second-best newcomer, desperately trying to steal Aunt's spotlight, and failing, because now even Ludger's interest feels suspiciously connected to Fernand's future. In every heroic epic, somebody gets cast as the villain, and today, that cursed spotlight lands on Aunt, the prophecy's chosen headache, while Fernand calmly announces hell cut down that legend. And Varon gets exposed as Ludger's loud little henchman, which is adorable, because the real story starts with Aunt's rise, not the empire's gossip, and Fernand answers the prince's interest with a perfectly smug little gamble, as the crowd erupts, crowning Aunt the winner and new problem, while Fernand's name spreads through professors and students like wildfire, and Ludger, looking every bit the polished future ruler, watches harder, because even he's starting to wonder if investing in Aunt was genius. Then, the hall crackles alive, and the judge smugly announces the bout begins. Across from him, the blonde prince watches like trouble disguised as manners, while Fernand answers with a brutal dash that shatters the floor, leaving the imperial prodigy visibly rattled, because bravado hates physics. Then steel sings as the blonde fighter gets shoved into a real duel, but Fernand's red sigil flashes, and that polished confidence starts bleeding fast, before the prince is launched backward, face first into humiliation, and the crowd finally realizes this arena now belongs to Fernand, so whispers spread that Aunt is the random partner nobody wanted, and even Ludger leans in, wondering if backing him was genius. Fernand's rank drop gets weaponized, and Aunt Armand lands 10th in the chaos. The blonde prince calls it boring, though his smugness is doing plenty of work, while Fernand stays ice cold, treating the whole spectacle like a numbers game. Even the black-haired noble starts doubting this show has any easy answer. Then Fernand erupts forward, and the floor pays the price for his confidence. Gardner's composure cracks instantly, because physics is rude to pretty arrogance, as Fernand's strike slams through him, turning the royal standard into scrap, and the arena floor buckles under the kind of power nobody wanted, so the whole hall freezes while Fernand stands there like the problem itself. Gardner finally realizes Aunt is the partner nobody can casually ignore. Fernand checks the bracket and finds Aunt buried at 38th place. Naturally, the room assumes he panicked from his opponent's flashy opening, but his calm answer cuts deeper, because confidence looks prettier than confusion. He reduces Aunt to a kid who only scraped into 38th, with surgical cruelty. Then the battlefield answers first, as red power tears through the hall and backs his threat. Gardner starts sweating through his knightly dignity, realizing Ain't is tougher than expected. Even the spectators can't help mocking the poor ranking, while Ain't keeps pushing anyway. Fernand's taunt lands hardest, because no talent apparently still means stubborn persistence. Ain't drives forward through the chaos, refusing to accept the smug verdict. And Gardner finally admits the real issue is not talent, but Ain't's terrifying momentum. Steel clashes explode across the hall, and the whole arena jolts awake, proving that his cursed environment never really had a chance, so the kid keeps carving through everything. Ain't Armin gets called special, which is hilarious considering how hard everyone doubted him. Then the prophecy angle rears up again, and suddenly the golden boy looks less like a fraud. One eye catches the chaos, because even Fernand knows momentum can humiliate the arrogant. Gardner gets painted as the world's protagonist, while Ain't keeps swinging anyway. The red-haired noble watches from the side, unimpressed and thoroughly done with the nonsense. Blades keep flying, and the proud academy pride starts folding under pressure. One competitor crashes to the floor, which is the universe's favorite way of mocking confidence. And just like that, the announcer crowns the winner, ending the debate brutally. Ain't Armand gets called out, and the room instantly locks onto him, because apparently he's the winner, while his doubters eat pure embarrassment. Then prophecy chatter flares up again, making the fraud look inconveniently legitimate. Fernand watches the momentum shift, smiling like prophet just walked in, while the nobles quietly wonder if Rowena was ever actually available, and the whole academy starts gossiping as if attention itself is a disease. So Fernand pivots straight into the next scheme, upgrades and elixirs included, with Rowena barely reacting, which somehow only makes her more dangerous. Then her new gear draws admiration, and even Ain't can't pretend it's bad, until the hall goes still again, because someone important has arrived. The Academy's chaos starts with Fernand smugly calling out every conveniently matched pair. Then Professor Rosalia and Professor Grad impose joint classes, because subtlety died long ago. Lectures open immediately, and the assistants' maps become everyone's new lifeline. Fernand flips the lesson into a practical exercise, casually activating absurd magic. The floor shakes under real practice, and the professor sells it like education with teeth. Of course, the map already had the destination marked, because Fernand loves traps. 4 hours is the deadline, not a suggestion, and punctuality suddenly matters. The class asks about grades, as if survival is just extra credit now. Fernand turns conflict into bonus points, because apparently violence improves performance. Then the final warning lands, and the whole room realizes luck is now mandatory. Under a flawless sky, the forest trail feels almost smugly peaceful. Then Fernand and Rowena hit a ridge, completely lost, naturally. So Rowena studies the map like it owes her answers, and Fernand follows, while the red-haired noble nearby realizes this little detour has company. The name Rowena lands, and suddenly the whole group starts orbiting her, with Fernand dismissing lower-ranked threats like their disposable background noise. Except his usual walk-away routine gets interrupted by actual resolve, which is new, because he decides to obey her judgment for once, and even calls that excellent. That means bonus points first, then the map, then whatever nonsense this forest demands. And when she asks about magic, he just doubles down on practicality. Rowena points toward the high ground, and Fernand instantly treats her like authority, while the red-haired noble awkwardly realizes this forest trip now has an audience. Then Fernand cuts through the panic, choosing bonus points over cowardly detours, and the others nearly lose their minds as that smug confidence gets checked hard, because a defensive spell hidden on the maps turns their easy run into a trap, and Fernand's magic slams through it anyway, shredding the barrier like cheap paper, leaving the assistant's little setup exposed, while the team trudges on unbothered, as the blue-haired academy sign shatters, proving another squad just got erased, and the red-haired noble coolly notes the eliminations are piling up absurdly fast, with no monsters taking credit, just student infighting making the whole exam look embarrassing. Inside the ranking hall, Professor Rosalia weighs the strongest pairs, and the nobles listen. Then the spotlight snaps to Ludger and a silent partner, already looking annoyingly perfect. But the real gossip magnet is Rowena Burchev and Fernand Fellenberg. Naturally, the red-haired noble assumes Rowena is the weak link, because Fernand never cared for grades. Instead, he learns Fernand has other reasons for pairing up, and they are not academic. Apparently, Fernand can boost his scores whenever he wants, even without Rowena's help. So the question turns brutal. Why does he always hover at 10th place? And the answer lands like a punch. Because outstanding students never miss the top, yet never miss 10th either. Fernand's written exams are nearly perfect, but practicals keep bleeding points, just enough to stay. The noble finally realizes the kid was never ordinary, just hiding in plain embarrassment. The training grounds disaster is old news, and the blame lands on the mysterious noblewoman, which absolutely shocks the red-haired noble, because students supposedly should not wreck arenas. Then he realizes Fernan was never obsessed with grades, just with looking harmless, and the real mystery becomes why he stopped hiding his talent at all. The map finally points to the western mountains, and Rowena calmly calls it done, while the exhausted party asks for the next route, as if survival were a hobby, so she marks northeast, casually counting bonus points like this quest is a shopping trip, and the others instantly commit to hunting the next pair. Because subtlety died earlier, then Fernan's sigils explode around the pair, making that confidence look painfully expensive, and just like that, the meeting point is settled, with everybody else already outclassed. Under the bright sky, Fernan gets announced like a walking warning label. Then Carlos Deneve and Alia Tortega face the usual ambush, minus dignity, and Fernan mocks the whole honor speech, calling this practice real enough. When the blue-eyed menace erupts with power, the battlefield gets expensive fast. Suddenly everyone remembers Carlos hates losing her, because pride is apparently fragile. Fernan swats off the tantrum and claims he belongs to nobody, conveniently. The arrogant grandstanding keeps collapsing, while his strength embarrasses every critic there. So the rule changes. No more spectating, because high-ranking prey gets hunted. Rowena stays icy, offering support only to test him, naturally. Fernan smirks back, then admits coordination first, because even chaos has paperwork. Fernan stands in the wreckage, casually promising safety while red sigils roar around him, and the onlookers stare at the blue-haired powerhouse beside him, completely baffled by her timing, because his magic slams outward so hard it looks expensive, dramatic, and deeply disrespectful. Then Rowena tilts into view, calmly noting the clash and acting like this disaster is normal, as the red-haired authority explains they're in the western mountain region, where monsters should not exist. Yet Fernan's spell keeps humming anyway, inviting a closer look from everyone pretending not to panic, until the crowd realizes two top pairs have collided, and the ranking talk turns vicious, while Gardner and the nobles quietly measure Fernan, and Rowena decides this mess is somehow perfect, so the battlefield erupts with lightning, bodies, and skill, proving the weak got eliminated instantly, and Rowena finally feels her body lighten, because Fernan's chaos somehow makes survival look easy. Gardner's eye catches something impossible, and the whole room tightens up, because Fernan is tossing around support magic like a flexing maniac, and the floor agrees. Even Gardner pauses, realizing this spoiled heir is not playing academy games anymore, while Fernan keeps grinning like trouble is his birthright, and honestly, it is. Then the duel widens into a ranking massacre, with top talent colliding head first, as the crowd begs for focus, and someone decides Alia must be handled first. But the battlefield explodes anyway, chunks flying, bodies crashing, and egos shattering, with one knight getting dragged into Fernan's pace, which is frankly humiliating. Blue lightning and brutal technique keep tearing through the field, leaving no room for pride, and Rowena can only watch. Lighter now, because surviving Fernan somehow looks easy. The mysterious swordwoman stands trapped in crackling blue lightning, and the mood is already ugly, because every instinct says, this isn't a normal duel, it's a public demolition job. Then she freezes up completely. And yeah, that kind of aura nonsense is humiliating, while Gardner watches, smug confidence melting fast, like his legend just tripped over itself. Ruinous warning only sharpens the tension, because she clearly knows this chaos isn't finished, and Gardner doubles down with that ridiculous aura act, thinking posture can replace skill, but the golden strike answers him instantly, blasting the field apart with no mercy. Rocks fly everywhere, and the whole battlefield starts looking like a very expensive mistake, as Rowena and the blue-haired spirit stare at the wreckage, trying to process reality. Then Fernan arrives with that smug look, making Ruinous' identity the next disaster. Rowena stares at the nonsense, already sensing Fernan's smug little trap. Fernan calls it magic, bragging about his family's shiny new toy. The spell swaps weight, and suddenly arrogance meets real pressure. Rowena snaps back, demanding answers, while he hides behind school records. Then the rock gets tossed, and the whole field explodes into blue chaos. Gardner tries to act composed, but that landing says otherwise. Honestly, Rowena lunges for revenge, only to get publicly outclassed and cornered, while Fernan mocks the gentleness, as if humiliation is his hobby. Gardner ends up face first in the dirt, wondering why this keeps happening, and Fernan stands there, leaving everyone else buried under his absurdity. Fernan smirks, admiring Carlos' lightning trick like stolen homework. Then the whole field erupts into a pillar of absurd blue punishment. That's why Carlos sits at the top, casually weaponizing Stormcraft, and even his research on blocking it sounds painfully overconfident. Fernan answers by releasing a ridiculous red sigil countermeasure, while the lightning keeps chewing through the air around him. Gardner watches that spectacle, and his confidence starts dissolving fast, because the next blast turns his grand posture into pure panic. The smoke swallows the arena, leaving everyone choking on disbelief, and Fernan just stands there, turning genius into public humiliation. Fernan smiles like a rich menace, already tasting victory in the smoke. Blue-haired pride cracks as his blocked attack exposes pure panic. Fernan shrugs off the freakout, calling it a mana-eating storage trick. Then he smugly admits he tuned it up, because subtlety is for losers. He starts pricing the artifact like inventory, while the blue-haired fool sputters. Fernan brushes off the cowardice accusations, mocking battle purity like a businessman. That leaves Gardner visibly sweating, realizing his grand confidence was decorative. Fernan casually names Rowena, and the mysterious noblewoman freezes under pressure. Gardner panics over Alia too, because his clean plan is collapsing instantly. Fernan ends it all with one cold order, and the room goes silent. Fernan's eye flashes like a warning, and the whole room locks up. Then his storage trick detonates the tension, making everyone else look painfully amateur. Gardner and Fernan stand off in the wreckage, both pretending this is normal, while the rankings chatter starts exposing how many dropouts this test already chewed up, and that smug little speech about no mage blocking Carlos Lightning suddenly sounds embarrassing, because Fernan and Rowena are the unlucky pair. Except he planned on that, so Gardner's confidence starts leaking out. The moment Fernan gets linked to Birchev, and the crowd realizes Fernand's real circle is full of people waiting to tear him down, which is exactly why he refuses to leave a rival breathing easy. So the whole test shifts under his cold order, and silence finally wins. Now the ranking talk turns ugly, and someone gets marked for elimination first. Rowena Birchev and Fernan Fellenberg are named, which means the knives are out. The troll charge lands hard, and the monster explodes into a messy finish. Meanwhile, Rowena keeps pushing onward, pretending this disaster is somehow efficient. Fernan answers with magic and menace, making the whole hunt look painfully amateur. When someone questions the blood cost, he shrugs like prophets, excuse everything. Then he laughs at their petty wealth problems, because apparently money is sacred. Rowena hisses that his deal was profitable, and urges the caravan forward. The score-obsessed fool gets called out, because he cares about rankings too much. Still, Fernan insists top student status is necessary, and that's the joke. Fernan calmly clocks the swarm, and even the mystery girl freezes beside him, because every shadow out there feels hostile, like the hunt turned personal. Then the ambush erupts overhead, targeting them from every direction at once, and Fernan answers with blue sigils and brutal efficiency, making pros look amateur, while one attacker gets launched across the field, proving confidence is cheap. Rowena holds her ground with a blade in hand, lit like bad luck itself, as the smug noble starts reading the battlefield, and yes, he notices Alon Donnertz. Then she meets his strike head-on, trading steel with enough force to rattle pride. The clash detonates into a perfect stalemate, which is just embarrassing for everyone, and Fernan lands low, already resetting the fight like victory is overdue. Rowena plants herself in the chaos, sword ready, while the ambush tightens around them. Two blades collide in a blinding burst, and the whole battlefield starts screaming. Rowena stays locked in, face cold as if panic is for amateurs, while Gardner's polished confidence starts cracking under pressure he clearly did not budget for. Fernan reads the exchange like paperwork, then spots the knight's opening and smirks, because every strike he throws keeps meeting resistance, which is humiliatingly rude. Then the blonde heavyweights of the field unleash absurd firepower, and someone gets launched. Fernan just narrows his eyes, flames reflecting back like he already owns the outcome. The red sigil backlash tears through the air, blasting both sides into pure disaster, and Gardner ends up recoiling at Fernan's stance, finally realizing he is the wrong opponent. Fernan's smug little flame show says he's already bought the battlefield, while Gardner stands there, dressed for victory and quietly losing the plot, as the red sigil backlash detonates, sending rubble, fire, and pride everywhere. And the Academy crowd gets launched into panic, proving mockery ages terribly, because ain't Armin's "I just wanted first place please" sounds almost cute, after he admits Fernan shredded half his pursuers, which is less an excuse than a surrender. But the blonde prince of confidence refuses charity, snapping that first place is off limits, then calmly suggesting peace, as if arrogance becomes noble when you say it politely, while the professors and nobles realize the test clock is bleeding out fast, and Fernan answers with that cold win-win smile, because of course he wants everything. Fernan shuts down the tantrum, choosing a fight over surrendering first place, and Ludger smirks, admitting negotiations died, because subtlety was never his hobby. Then the whole squad realizes Fernan's not bluffing, and invites the chaos anyway. He answers with that cold little smile, acting like next time is optional. Even Ludger's face tightens, because Fernan just made arrogance look painfully affordable. The attackers gather under the red sigil storm, and the floor starts begging for mercy. The blast scatters everyone, cracking earth and ego in one deliciously ugly sweep. Panic spreads as the crowd finally learns mockery ages badly in explosions. Ludger calls it a trap, but that's just embarrassment wearing princely hair. Fernan stands untouched, because of course the win-win monster wants everything. Fernan's smug little grin says the wilderness lesson is finally starting, and Ruinous already exhausted, because his tricks always arrive fashionably late, while the estate cheers the ranking results, and the academy pretends not to panic, since first place landing on Fernan and Rowena is just absurdly convenient, and second place going to Ludger and Alon only sharpens that humiliation, with Rowena admitting they somehow beat everyone else, which is adorable. Fernan just enjoys the top spot, acting like winning was inevitable. Then the announcer seals the test and smugly reminds them to stay nearby, before finally dropping the real bait, Ain't Armin's name, like a loaded grenade, and Fernan's crew already knows that boy is the next disaster waiting. So the real bombshell drops here, and Ain't Armin's name finally gets dragged into focus, while the smug little rumor mill instantly remembers Fernan once happened to meet him at night, and Rowena, still pretending this isn't bizarre, starts connecting that fateful sword dance memory, because Fernan has now decided prophecy is a flex, not a curse, and that's terrifyingly on brand. Then Ain't reaches for Rowena, offering knighthood with all the subtlety of a thunderclap, but the thing in the dark clearly wasn't done, because that filthy miasma was hunting him all along. Just as the nightmare peaks, Ludger plants himself between them, looking painfully noble about it, and he even scolds Ruina's hesitation before stubbornly challenging Ain't's whole future, while Rowena finally admits she once rejected him, but not anymore, which is awkwardly dramatic. Now Ain't knows exactly who they are, what they're fighting for, and so does Fernan. Rowena's blast tears open Andromalius, and blue light swallows everything, while she lies dazed, trying to understand this cursed upgrade. Then Fernan's hospital visit turns ridiculous, with Ludger acting noble, as Ain't's glare burns straight through Rowena, all jealousy and panic, and the academy starts frothing over filthy rich bastards. Naturally, before Fernan appears, Red Eyes calm, hearing the outrage like entertainment. Meanwhile, the witnesses rush in, asking if he collapsed from overexertion, but Fernan shrugs it off, because drama barely qualifies as damage. Rowena suggests the infirmary, worried he overused unfamiliar power, and Fernan privately realizes Ain't has started treating him like an enemy. Ludger plays the composed prince, while Ain't fumes over filthy rich bastards. That worry twists into Andromalius, the demon nobody sane wants near. Back at the estate, Fernan gets praised like a finished product, already profitable. He complains about exhaustion, and his servant responds with ruthless efficiency. The carriage rolls through the academy grounds, all luxury and quiet menace. Inside it, Ain't keeps reading Andromalius, the 72nd demon, black-haired and black-eyed. Then comes the snake-wrapped monster, and the search turns into sad research. Demons are basically myth now, which is adorable considering the apocalypse history. Fernan shrugs off the uncertainty, because Ain't can fight them anyway, apparently, but Rowena gets wrecked in that battle, and the prophecy starts biting back. Fernan is already sounding like a future accountant of disaster, and the estate just smiles. His servant answers the complaint with icy efficiency, while luxury keeps marching toward the academy. Inside the carriage, Ain't keeps dragging demons into conversation like a man begging for trouble. Rowena hears the theory, then gets the obvious question: believe the apocalypse, or play dumb? She still trusts the Empire's anti-demon history, which is cute considering the prophecy circus. Fernan pushes harder, treating her suspicion like proof, and she calls him absurd on instinct. Then he starts hunting for demon traces, because apparently his best idea is controlled insanity. A month later, that gamble pays off, as Ain't crushes a top night class rival. The academy suddenly has a new ceiling, and everyone below Ain't looks painfully ordinary. Gardner's bitter pride hangs in the air, proving belief can ruin the loser twice. They thought Fernan was finished, but his backing was already laughing last, because the demon slipped in through Calbuden, turning their grand judgment into disaster, while Ain't calmly realized that rumor was currency, so he started spending it, and Fernan, red-eyed as ever, decided suspicion was just free marketing, since the missing possession scene only made his future mess look more useful. The academy then compared ranks, and discovered Ain't had crushed the ceiling, naturally, leaving Gardner and the old noble crowd choking on their precious pride, while Birchev got dragged into the family politics, whether she liked it or not, and the blue spirit smugly reminded everyone that old bloodlines still mattered. But in this new era, the upstarts were winning, and the fossils knew it. Fernan answers the weirdly sudden concern with icy calm, and honestly, That glow is suspicious, because the Fillenbergs clearly want Ain't's attention, then trap him with fake courtesy and leverage, and Ain't, already done pretending, admits Fernand's kindness probably has some filthy agenda, since his house is wrecked anyway, so he refuses to romanticize the obvious manipulation. Then the blue spirit basically loses its mind, hearing trust can't be bought, adorable denial, while Ain't remembers a senior who saved him with a potion, which is inconveniently genuine, and even Fernand's calculating stare gets compared to real concern, ruining the usual opportunist narrative, so Ain't drops the money angle, insisting trust is not some luxury item for sale, which sends the background nobles into full meltdown as the kid keeps refusing their framing, because even the former emperor would admit a rich backer beats pride every time. The Fillenbergs play kindness like a trap, and Fernand knows it, so Ain't hears the money angle, and realizes this offer smells calculated, because Fernand still runs the merchant guild while surviving academy chaos, yet Ain't refuses the guest routine, demanding the real reason instead, and the household servant reports that the young master is busy now, while Ain't keeps pushing, mocking the promised cash like bait, which makes Fernand seem suspiciously different from the usual aristocrat scam. Then the black-haired heir admits the bait worked sooner than expected, as the servant confirms Ain't was sent back, neatly denied, and Fernand coolly wonders why the boy arrived this quickly. Fernand already clocked Ain't as the type who never asks nicely, and that's the problem, because the servant flatly says he was sent back, which somehow makes Fernand smugger, as he bets Ain't is chasing something bigger than courtesy, maybe the fallen imperial heir, so he dangles an opening, planning to reel him in without looking desperate. Of course, then orders a warehouse raid for elixirs, acting like expensive medicine is just loose change, but even he admits the ducal stock is absurdly pricey, because wasting money is for amateurs, so he upgrades the bait, laughing that if cash fails, the target clearly needs more cash, while the mansion outside hears he met the Fillenberg butler, sending rumor machinery into overdrive, and the butler's apology box lands like a tiny diplomatic bomb, suspiciously polite for a Fillenberg, because now everyone wants to read the note, and Fernand already smells another profitable trap. Fernand hears the elixir pitch and mocks the outrage, because money talks harder, then his eye locks in, and the whole room realizes this bargain means business. Even the onlookers choke on the implications, wondering why he is suddenly involved. The Saint Bird's heart elixir arrives glowing, absurdly perfect for light-based combat. Meanwhile, the estate hears Fernand met the Fillenberg butler, and rumor detonates. The servant gushes over his growth, while Fernand accepts praise like a scheduled dividend. Back in the office, the report comes in. Ain't Armin won the duel. Kalbunder gets credited as slightly stronger, but Ain't's aura bulldozed the result. That ruins the old prophecy math, so everyone assumes the elixir tilted fate. Fernand stays smug, because if prophecy can be bought, he's already winning. So you're saying Armin wins even without the elixir? Huh. Which is adorable, because nobody can prove that, naturally. Meanwhile, the prophecy gets wilder, with demon possession suddenly sounding convenient. Fernand orders Hyde to watch Varen, and the trap starts. He wants every meeting, temptation, and contact mapped, neatly, because if a demon returns, hell monetized the disaster. 2 weeks later, the surveillance pays off embarrassingly well. Varen merely vanishes for a bathroom break, and everyone panics. In class, the rankings hold steady, nothing dramatic happening at all, which is exactly the kind of terrifying silence that means trouble. The academy looms under moonlight, and something already feels disgustingly wrong. Meanwhile, Fernand skips the panic, watching Hyde in the bathroom schedule, Hess already mapping Varen. Every excuse, every contact, every convenient little lie. 2 weeks later, the demon rumor cracks, because Varen only vanished briefly. Then the midterm explodes, and Ain't humiliates Varen before everyone's eyes. Now, the loser postures. But Ain't already owns the outcome, obviously. Enter Gardner Alphenparson, the Grand Knight. And suddenly that confidence starts evaporating. Ain't leaves Varen behind, not even bothering to admire the wreckage. But the demonic energy spreads anyway, creeping into body and mind. And just like that, Fernand gets decked, because trouble loves bad timing. Morning hits the manor, and Fernand wakes like he barely survived destiny again, then shrugs off the nightmare, treating prophecies like bad sleep and worse expenses, because he already tracked Varen's possession timing. Right after that humiliating loss, and the Academy's first-year night exam looms, dragging everyone toward spectacle, while Ain't's victory keeps echoing, and Gardner's credit keeps shrinking beautifully. When Hyde arrives with breakfast, Fernand instantly clocks the estate's latest summons, and, naturally, he needs an escort. But his priorities stay profit-shaped, so he says the exam can wait, because the Duke's estate called first, then casually rejects the obvious choice, hunting for someone else with green magic, meaning Rowena becomes the expensive little friend money bought, and nobody pretends otherwise. Exam season is raging, and Fernan still refuses to delay the payoff, so he bribes Rowena with debt relief, then drags her along. Naturally, the destination is the northern mountain region, that dramatic little headache, which of course, doubles as the first-year midterm exam site now. Money buys plenty, but not dignity, and then he bought help anyway. Then he smugly praises Professor Grad's flexibility, because subtlety is for losers. Rowena hears enough, and decides she is done with this escort nonsense. Fernan complains like a man caught cheating, because rules suddenly matter. She snaps back that a knight should not abandon his word. And then the punchline lands. He forgot to bring his sword. Fernan calmly sends Rowena after supplies, already acting like the trip is purchased, while his hidden escorts crash through the woods, hunting quiet enough for nobody important to notice, because he admits bribing Professor Grad, and apparently embarrassment is just an optional fee. Rowena instantly calls out the fraud, reminding him a knight's word should actually mean something. Then she checks the route and realizes Ain't sits near second place, which is frankly annoying, and that ranking means trouble, because he is dangerously close to the top 3, so they rush ahead, with Rowena spotting a professor's map and hating every rule. Fernan's hood turns that smug face into a threat, which is always his favorite costume, but then the forest jolts with monster cries, proving their timing is spectacularly terrible, and Fernan just grins like the chaos was inevitable, because of course it was. The hooded noblewoman spots the first year's trail, and panic starts brewing. Rowena bolts ahead, because apparently dying alone is a rookie mistake. Fernan huffs after her, shouting warnings like he owns the forest. He finds her checking the collapsed boy, smugly calling him monster-bitten. Then Rowena notices something rotten, because these beasts should not be this vicious. Fernan realizes the ambush hit sooner, and his precious schedule is collapsing. Even so, he freezes at the mess, grumbling he still needs. Varen checked. Rowena stares at him like he's the entire problem, which, honestly, fair. Then the forest erupts again, and suddenly everyone is asking what happened. Fernan and Rowena hit the forest trail, and the mood turns instantly suspicious, because her glare says the handsome heir still has no clue where they are. Then the woods blur as something huge launches in, wrecking their calm, and Rowena spots the beast first, realizing this thing is absurdly vicious. The monster tears forward through the trees, while she nearly loses her composure, but Fernan's precious timing is already collapsing, so the smug act dies fast. Then the blade work starts, and the beast gets flattened before it can flex, leaving Rowena staring at the chaos like the forest itself broke a rule, because the creature's arm is suddenly gone, and even its rage looks stupid, before the whole thing crashes down on her head with a brutal final thud. The ground detonates under Fernan's feet, turning calm into flying rubble, and he still meets the attack with absurdly clean timing, while the monster barrels in, only to get cut apart. Its arm and momentum both ruined, which is honestly embarrassing, because Rowena sees the beast leap like a lunatic and thinks, great, then it slams down hard, and the forest gets very quiet. Fernan keeps walking like this was scheduled, not a disaster, leaving Rowena to demand answers as the berserk state gets named, because berserk monsters are murder-hungry freaks, obsessed with killing anything alive, and the real reason finally lands. Some demon made it snap. While professors scramble over the anomaly, Barian swings first, and Fernan answers. The beast's face says everything, pure panic when a crisis stops being cool. Meanwhile, Ain't notices disaster piling up, and somehow that's still funny. Fernan casually invokes Rowena, then pins the whole mess on his brooch. The nobles finally clock his network. While the ambush starts looking expensive, then the map gets shredded, because apparently even geography is getting bullied. Ain't lands again, and Barian's dramatic little comeback already feels doomed. The forest turns into a stage, with Ain't standing over the mess again. Barian tries to keep fighting, but the prince's verdict is brutal. Fernan ends it coldly, making sure Barian learns who actually won. Fernan stands there drenched in menace, practically smirking, and the whole room feels cooked. He keeps that grim promise to himself, because apparently winning is now survival. Even his family pressure gets dragged in, and the old smugness starts leaking out fast. One bad move could cost his heir status, so the Profit and Power Act suddenly looks desperate. Far away, Ain't spots the chaos, and decides defeating him is somehow the only option. Then the line snaps forward. Fernan's strike slices through the forest, and the attack finally starts failing. Right in the middle of it, someone yells for Ain't to stop, which is adorable timing. Gardner watches with that cold night face, while Ain't just stares back like a problem solver. Fernan's expression twists into panic, because the ambush is collapsing faster than his ego. And then the final cut lands, leaving Barian wrecked, exposed, and completely outplayed. The The forest turns into a humiliation stage, and Fernan stands over his wrecked rival, while his smugness gets even louder. Because apparently Grace dies first when ego survives, the knights call him a disgrace and a coward. Yet Fernan keeps treating this as an exam. Nearby, the observers decide Hes less dangerous than they expected, which is hilarious in hindsight. Rowena tries to drag him back to reason, warning him to abandon the elixir and retreat, but Ain't refuses the sane option, insisting they cut through monsters and keep going west, because to him, Fernan's obsession is still a problem worth challenging head-on. Then the tension snaps, and Rowena realizes he never predicted any of this mess, so she questions whether the elixir matters more than lives. And Fernan answers with a grin, before sprinting off like a lunatic, shouting that the elixir matters more. While Rowena loses it, sunlit forest silence sets the stage, and the elixir hunt finally feels real, because Fernan's crew has already missed the chaos, which is almost embarrassing. Then a servant reports collapse nearby, and Rowena rushes in too late. Ain't recognizes her instantly, while Fernan gets swarmed by panic and bad timing. The fallen man is Barian Kalbundid, apparently skilled enough to deserve shock, so the group starts arguing about helping him, instead of leaving him as monster bait. Rowena insists nobody can abandon a collapsed person, especially not in this forest, but Ain't keeps warning her about berserk monsters, and she still pushes for safety. Then Fernan appears behind them like a grim omen, catching every joke by accident, and Rowena freezes as the whole mess turns into a very expensive disaster. Rowena catches a brutal aura, and her instincts instantly start screaming. Even the veteran with her feels that monstrous pressure, because this is no ordinary mess. The collapsed noble finally gets identified as Barian Kalbinder, which somehow makes things worse. Ain't calls it demonic energy, and Rowena dares to translate that into nightmare logic. Then the hooded man confirms Barian Kalbinder, and admits possession with terrifying calm. His body stands there like a puppet, drenched in red corruption and bad news. The real problem is staring at Ain't now, because the prophecy picked its favorite victim. Rowena starts piecing it together, wondering if a demon hijacked Kalbinder's body. The hooded witness flatly explains the target has shifted, and that's never a good sign. Fernan stares through it all, then quietly exposes the worst part. Ain't's eyes prove he's lost it. Rowena wants Kalbinder subdued first, already sounding exhausted by Fernan's chaos. Then she buys 10 minutes, pretending that mess counts as a real plan. Ain't calls it demonic energy, and Rowena instantly upgrades it to nightmare logic, because of course the forest picks today, for everyone's worst instincts to surface. Then Barian Kalbinder gets named, and the hooded witness confirms possession with horrifying calm. His body hangs there like a puppet, all red corruption and bad news, while the real target shifts to Ain't, the prophecy's favorite punching bag. Rowena starts connecting the dots, wondering if a demon hijacked Kalbinder, and the hooded witness coolly admits the situation has already gone sideways, leaving Fernan to expose the ugly truth. Ain't's eyes look completely lost. The forest floor explodes, and one noble gets launched like scrap, because Fernan's power hits hard, fast, and humiliatingly on sight. Then Ain't snaps at Kalbinder's collapse, while everyone else panics. That's when the possessed body starts leaking corruption like a cursed fountain, and the name Kalbinder lands, turning a random victim into proof. As the hooded witness confirms possession with creepy, effortless calm, Fernan answers with blue-lit steel, looking annoyingly prepared as ever. While the demon energy surges around Barian, ugly and desperate, Rowena steps in glowing with force, finally done tolerating this mess, and the monster screams back, proving this nightmare is nowhere near over. The corruption erupts upward like a cursed tower, while blue power fights back, and the first clash lands with nasty precision, because subtlety clearly died today. Then the blast keeps climbing, shredding the forest air like a screaming verdict as Fernan's boot hits down, cocky as ever, in the middle of disaster, while Gardner looks exhausted, blaming endless demonic pressure for that ugly drain. Barian's ruined body starts panicking, leaking corruption and pathetic confusion everywhere, and Rowena finally decides enough is enough, cutting through the panic with resolve. Fernan stays maddeningly calm, answering her alarm with that smug over here, which only makes the possessed noble lose it harder, all rage and corruption, before the monster gets slammed flat, proving arrogance is no substitute for control. Deep in the forest, Rowena rushes the others forward, and the panic starts ugly, while Ain't snaps back, because apparently every problem now gets called demon-shaped, and Fernan casually denies the retreat, claiming he planted the trap for Kalbinder, because of course he did, treating a deadly ambush like a business invoice. Then his red sigil flares, and the forest floor turns into a slapstick execution, as the attackers get launched skyward, proving brute force can't bully preparation, while the corrupted noble gets blasted higher, wrecked by Fernan's absurd judgment. Then flames rain down from the sigil array, turning the whole sky into punishment, and Kalbender slams into the earth, finally getting humbled by the smug air. Rowena protests the cruelty, but Fernan stays icy, because that was still mercy. Under the hood, Fernan dismisses death talk like a bored merchant, then his red sigil detonates, and the ambush gets launched skyward. Rowena hears he fought Kalbinder already, and now he's worse. So he reveals the gem, smiling like this disaster was pre-ordered. Barian's corruption gets dragged into the firestorm, looking uglier by the second. Fernan keeps feeding the array, because subtlety clearly died today. A column of flame drops punishment from the sky, and wow, dramatic much. Kalbinder finally slams down, learning humility, the expensive way. Rowena calls the result a success, while Fernan stays annoyingly calm. He even shrugs off the cost, because apparently price tags are optional. The wetlands verdict starts ugly. As Rowena mocks demon panic and overconfidence, Fernan gets labeled a disaster magnet, yet his foundation still surprises everyone. Ain't catches the bad news, realizing Fernan's current setup is ridiculous. Then the rankings twist the knife, proving Rowena still outclasses him today. Fernan forgets the real target, and screams about absurd trap expenses instead. Rowena checks his focus, while the possessed body looms behind her smugly. Barian's corruption gets hammered, and the cost complaints keep getting funnier. The ambush finally detonates, leaving Fernan and Rowena staring at chaos. One savage hit lands, and the demon glamour completely falls apart. So much for grandeur, because humiliation still charges interest in full. Under the forest canopy, Ain't stares at Fernan's chaos, utterly disgusted. Then the recording sphere confirms the truth, and the red-haired menace is exposed, because the scene cannot be faked, no matter how loudly he protests. While Rowena stands there like a deadpan tutor, explaining his glorious blackout, and Fernan's excuse collapses fast, since demon possession is now the official embarrassment, with the name Varen dropping in, as if that somehow makes this circus cleaner, before the bomb of magic arrows lands, shredding the smug little narrative. Then hellfire erupts upward, turning the possessed body into a premium bonfire, and the only reason he's still breathing is demonic energy babysitting him, so Fernan survives, barely, proving humiliation really does come with interest. Inside the estate, Rowena coolly reminds him the stopping tools were expensive, and Fernan answers with that priceless mix of trauma, greed, and battlefield bookkeeping. Then he frames the whole possession fiasco as a simple contract problem, while the red-haired noble gets told to sign or keep the embarrassment forever, and the supposed victim suddenly realizes this is just a slave contract, with Fernan mocking the terms as painfully obvious and legally ugly. Then he calls in the Inquisitors, practically inviting public scrutiny, because that Empire-backed demon purge group still loves dramatic self-importance, but their ancient glory has rotted into a paper tiger with fire, and Fernan smiles at the spotlight, knowing they cannot resist his recording sphere. Fernan shuts the demon panic down, acting like possession is just bad paperwork, and that smug little noble instantly hears his own exile being stapled on. Then the contract needle drops, carving proof into the room like a verdict, while the attendants quietly bow out, leaving Fernan to enjoy the humiliation. Out in the forest, Rowena asks if this mess can stay private, but Ain't kills that fantasy fast, insisting professors need to hear it, because Varen's case smells like manipulation, not coincidence, and that changes everything, meaning there's probably a traitor at the academy, cozying up to demons. And once this goes public, the hidden rats have nowhere left to crawl, so Rowena immediately wonders why academy students were the perfect targets. In the woods, Fernan calmly turns academy danger into a strategic warning, while Rowena catches the brutal logic. Hurt the students, and you cripple the empire. Then she boldly offers demon-slaying help, as if trouble were a hobby, and Fernan immediately files that away as profitable leverage with her. Naturally, back at the academy, professors scramble over the monster incident, and midterms get axed, except the exam itself survives, because apparently chaos still respects paperwork, which leaves the students staring at written tests like they just got mugged, since their grades were built on practical combat, not poetry for cowards, so the written-only format becomes a personalized nightmare for battle students, and Rowena gets stuck studying while everyone else discovers panic has homework. Ain't keeps staring at the notes, while that blue spirit hovers like unpaid debt. Then the warning gets weirdly specific, and suddenly demon energy feels way too familiar. The old monster rampage gets blamed on demons, because of course it does, except the demon never shows, which is such a convenient little disaster. So the explanation turns into prophecy, and Ain't becomes the demon magnet. The spirit insists demons will keep hunting him, because he is apparently premium bait. Ain't sounds genuinely lost there, like being cursed somehow came with bad customer service. Then comes the brutal truth. Demons hate Armians, and want them erased first. So the guidance is simple. Stay sharp, obey orders, and survive the obsession. Meanwhile, at Ravidus Hall, another nightmare is quietly waking up. Fernand's headache hits like lightning, and the household servant freaks out, because the air just collapses. While the estate starts panicking around him, then the academy yanks everyone into field survival, and Ain't heads south, through wetland paths, hunting a secret herb, with death hanging nearby. He finally finds the hidden beast, and wow, that spiritual story was nonsense. So the creature lunges, but Ain't calmly outplays it like an insult. When it drops, the wall caves in, and mithril veins spill out. Naturally, Ain't is told to mine everything, because subtlety is dead. The sword's mithril core even houses a soul, which is absolutely inconvenient. And back in the office, the servant just stares, realizing this keeps escalating. Fernand stares at soul-forged metal, because even his problems come with upgrades, and naturally he claims the whole hall, treating the herb hunt like inventory. While Ain't hears the Academy's glorious field survival week is conveniently mandatory, then Fernand smugly offers a fix for the missed classes, too generous to trust, but Ain't refuses flat out. So Fernand weaponizes Birchev's interest like a businessman, and the poor guy still hates skipping class more than weird herbs, until an entourage arrives, forcing Ain't to beg for another plan, because this charming interruption is actually Fernand, grinning like an expensive disaster, and he blesses the room with mana as if humility died years ago, with Rowena sizing him up, clearly realizing he is the problem. Jace Fiennes arrives like a holy firework, loudly claiming Fernand wasn't alone. Inside the manor, Fernand greets Rowena Birchev with terrifyingly polished warmth. He asks about academy life, and she answers with bored, careful politeness. Then he tosses in field survival week, while she glances over in disbelief. Fernand leans in about their closeness, as if embarrassment were a hobby. He acts amused by her shock, calling it natural, which is classic Fernand nonsense. Rowena fires back that nothing here is natural, and finally says his name. Suddenly, the Dragon God Church gets introduced like a glowing cult brochure. Fernand becomes their radiant saint, while the crowd starts worshipping harder, and Rowena keeps pressing him, because this miracle clearly smells like trouble. Since their church runs on mages, the real miracle is funding, and House Pellenberg bankrolls the whole glowing little operation. Church-crafted magic gets funneled straight into their merchant guild, so naturally, Fernand calls that holy symbiosis and flexes harder. He even jokes he's technically older, because arrogance loves theater. Rowena winces at the saint act, while Fernand pokes the wound. Then the room turns to static as he laughs off the insult. Rowena admits his relationship logic actually makes some twisted sense. Yet she still tries to leave, refusing to join this circus. Fernand smugly sends her off anyway. Like trouble is a subscription. The manor hall crackles with another summons, and Fernand answers it smugly, because Ain't arrives to hear the herb request, already regretting everything, while Fernand pitches the scheme as profit-safe, and Rowena immediately smells nonsense. Then he casually claims she could sneak it first, like rules or decoration, except he admits he can't even locate the target yet. How adorable. So the prophecy map becomes the real lead, pointing straight at the southern lake, and Fernand decides the hidden cave has to be hunted through Ain't instead. Rowena objects about the training crowd, but he's already joining as assistant, because second years can help, he says, as if chaos were a credential, and the smug menace seals it with permission, somehow making bribery look legal. Fernand sells the scheme as airtight, and Barian bites instantly, demanding plenty of compensation like greed somehow qualifies as wisdom, while Fernand drafts the contract, turning trouble into paperwork. Naturally, then the wetlands party marches on, carrying those ridiculous supply crates, because the spirit herb sits in Lake Farden, west of here, and Fernand shrugs off suspicion, insisting coincidences are easier to fake, as the second years spot him and start gossiping like vultures, realizing he is somehow assisting, which means bonus points, apparently, with Ain't grinning as if this scam came with a trophy, until the training order drops, and everyone scrambles into position. The party's already gossiping, and Fernand's fake smile is selling the whole Eris bait routine, while Ain't gets hit with another layer of formal nonsense, all dressed up for trouble. Then Fernand casually feeds him blood and mana, like this is friendship or tax season, and the exchange leaves everybody staring, as if the genius move came straight from heaven, because apparently the fake magic charm looks convincing enough to fool the room, almost, except Fernand admits he's been using that spell to slip past the Pope's holiness, which somehow makes the priests look dumber than the students, and that is impressive. Even then, the trick only takes a few hours to click, leaving Ain't uncertain, so Fernand seals it with smug confidence, declaring the plan good enough for the greatest mage, and yep, he's already decided. Ain't will probably be useful later, because of course he has. Fernan casually points out Jace never even existed in prophecy, which is hilarious. Then the Dragon God Church hatred of humans gets framed like holy tradition. And suddenly demons become magic's favorite punching bag, because Nuance apparently died. The priests spiral into full-on exorcist mania, turning faith into a demolition derby. Fernan shrugs off Ain't's future like a side bet, then sets a brutal deadline. Ain't accepts the job while Fernan smirks, sounding way too sure he'll deliver. From there, the cloaked guide keeps leading the group west through the trees, with the only route being Lake Farden. Fernan's plan gets even sharper. He then orders the next step through Ain't, like a smug battlefield tutor. And finally, he tells the red-haired noble to just follow the sunbay. Deep in the woods, the nightly search suddenly freezes, and the tension spikes hard, because Gardner spots Barry Calverton, who looks like trouble wearing sunlight, while the red-haired noble arrives already rattled, as if guilt found him first, and Gardner hammers him about trying again, which is rich coming from a wreck, since Barrion gets openly mocked for failing twice, then still acting important, before Fernan drags Ain't into his training circus and makes incompetence look strategic. Then the pressure turns demonic, with that smug little survival lecture going fully unhinged, as Barrion refuses defeat again, because apparently humiliation still hasn't taught him anything, and now his reputation is already in shambles, which is honestly the most honest thing here. Even so, he swears hellfight once more, desperate to claw back honor. In the woods, the red-haired knight keeps demanding another round. Despite defeat, Gardner studies Ain't, and shockingly, admits the kid might actually be impressive. Then he corners Barrion anyway, because this whole noble routine needs accountability. Fernan cuts in, declaring the training rules, and suddenly arrogance meets bureaucracy. Barrion panics, still insisting honor matters, which is adorable at this point. Even the sword clangs back his nonsense, while Ain't refuses to play weak. The spirits escalate the spectacle, daring him to challenge a real knight. Fernan shrugs off the chaos, telling everyone to keep stalling and look competent. Meanwhile, he handles the forest side of things with one nasty strike. Then he sends the cloaked helper to take care of business, like a boss. Under that blinding mountain sky, Fernan stands alone, looking annoyingly prepared, while the forest stays sealed tight, like it knows better than to gossip, because no one's nearby, no barrier leaks sound, and his theft of mithril stays elegant, so he grins, eager to test magic he's clearly been dying to monetize. Then the spellwork blooms, all reckless confidence and stitched-together ambition, because time's short, and he rushes the ritual with one goal: summon something useful before Ain't arrives, which is how he proudly names his servant, as if this circus needed more arrogance, until the magic spits out a hulking golem. Every bit the flashy invoice of power, the construct gets tagged on sight, while Fernan keeps laughing at the absurdity of it, and now everyone realizes the monster is real, because it's a golem. With one smug point, Fernan officially renames the stolen golem James, then drags his new investment toward mithril, because subtlety is for peasants, and the forest suddenly turns into a whining contest of roadblocks, annoying rivals, and baggage, while Barrion gets snarled at for acting childish, which is rich coming from him. Fernan, grinning like a man who hates restraint, admits he actually enjoys this mess, and that confidence hits Gardner hard enough to make the blonde knight pause, because Fernan's attitude is basically, yes, I love ruining my enemies, which sends Gardner into a stunned, furious spiral as the insult lands. Then Fernan's kick sends Barrion flying, proving arrogance has terrible footing, and the forest answers with a brutal crash, as the James problem gets real. Fernan's meltdown is peak chaos. And yes, he owns it, because this forest contest starts with him baiting everyone, then smirking through the mess, while Barrion checks the time and realizes Fernan's endure lesson was a scam. Then comes the humiliating verdict. Barrion survived longer than expected, barely, and suddenly Ain't Arman is the new obsession. As knights start begging for common sense, but the cave matters more. Since hidden spirit herbs never advertise themselves, Fernan spots something wrong under the water, and that instinct is annoyingly useful. The blue flame hovers close, practically screaming that this place hides a secret. With waterfalls overhead and flowers below, the jackpot looks absurdly perfect and suspicious. Fernan finally grins at the discovery, because of course he just won again. Deep in the underwater cave, Fernan's victory grin makes the darkness look expensive, because the so-called guardian just got bullied into exposing the spirit herb jackpot, while the blonde knight's judgment call gets uglier. Since Troublesome is doing heavy lifting, and the cave floor practically advertises profit, with hidden herbs sitting there like free merchandise, except the blue flame spots the sea dragon problem. So the easy harvest becomes comedy. As Fernan doubles down anyway, flirting with danger like it owes him interest. Then the knight's warning hits harder, because that monster is way above everyone's pay grade. But the cave wall barely matters when the dragon's bulk starts shifting the whole chamber, and the water roars as that massive body surges through the cavern, rude as hell, until one glowing eye opens, and suddenly Fernand's grin looks even more dangerous. The cave turns into a screaming collapse. As the dragon's power tears through stone, Gardner finally realizes this is a disaster, and that blue spirit is panicking. He freezes on the brink of action, watching the monster's scale erase his confidence. The dragon's face looms overhead, because apparently subtlety was never invited here. So Gardner suggests the safest plan imaginable, which is to jump Fernand into danger. That heroic idea gets mocked instantly, since the beast is absurdly beyond their league. The dragon's jaws flash open, and retreat stops being a strategy altogether. Gardner shouts for everyone to run, while admitting escape is already laughably late. Then the beast strikes, blasting him backward like a lesson in bad judgment, and Fernand's expression says the real problem has finally started getting interesting. Gardner's bold charge meets the beast's colossal head, and confidence evaporates instantly. The monster answers with a brutal sweep, turning the battlefield into mockery. Gardner coughs through the impact, still trying not to look totally doomed. Even his footing betrays him, as the water below becomes a trap. Fernand just watches, annoyingly calm, like disaster is merely market analysis. The dragon's eyes lock on, and the warning signs finally stop whispering. Its maw opens wide, swallowing courage faster than Gardner can recover. Gardner drags everyone into retreat, which would be heroic if it worked. Fernand stays framed in gold, wearing that smug look of profitable confidence. Then the dragon spirals downward, and the whole plan gets obliterated. Gardner's confidence cracks first, as the ground below turns traitor, and the dragon barrels in, proving mockery is not a defense. While the knight gets mauled backward, looking painfully underqualified for heroics, Fernand just watches, cool as a loan shark, as panic spreads. Then the arrogant plan collapses when the dragon ignores every desperate excuse, and Barian, possessed and miserable, becomes the perfect example of bad timing. Fernand casually flashes the Saint Bird's heart, like he owns fate, while the golem and the black-haired man brace inside the cracked cavern. Gardner tries to drag the whole mess out, but the floor says no, and the mountain swallows their retreat, because luck finally ran out. Ain't barely crawled out alive, and the blue spirit kept scolding, because the water dragon was hunting like it had a grudge. Then the cave's collapse finally looked useful, since he survived, barely, and now that Saint Bird Heart has juiced his energy upward, which is hilarious, because climbing back out of here sounds miserable, so the spirit drags him toward the cavern, sensing trouble ahead, while Ain't stares into the dark, asking whether this is the place, only to find nothing there, except the creepy echo of insistence. Then they decide to grab the spirit herb and get out, and that's when the light leaks through, like the mountain finally cracked. In the cave's blue gloom, Ain't spots something strange, and gets the answer fast, because the spirit wants that buried prize dug up. Immediately. No patience. No mercy. Stone shudders under the pressure. Then the whole cavern starts coughing rubble, and Ain't finally realizes this mess is the thing they came for. The glowing spirit swells with a smug victory, like it personally won the lottery, while red-haired Fernand returns with that infuriatingly polished grin, acting completely unbothered. He brushes off the search as a tiny monster problem, then calls it handled, because apparently casual apocalypse cleanup is just another Tuesday for him. After that, the merchant talk turns slick and transactional, all about the church order, and Fernand seals it with a lazy farewell, as if chaos pays in advance. Under the bright canopy, Fernand savors mithril like a jackpot already cashed, but the shine alone is useless. Because rare metal needs a perfect partner, adamant gets named next, the hardest option, and naturally the most impossible to buy, so he keeps hunting solutions. While every clue points toward a smarter alloy, then the prophecy suddenly gets treated like a buried treasure map. How convenient, until a panicked student barrels in, begging the instructor for rescue like today's demo went feral. Ain't's own problem is worse, though, because adamant keeps echoing through his head, and the whole forest search turns into a frantic hunt, while monsters close in. Even the instructor tries to keep things civilized, pretending danger is just routine, but Fernand's grin says otherwise, because he's about to turn this disaster into profit. The forest ambush finally explodes, and the monster gets swatted aside like trash. Fernand then orders the noise handled, because apparently he enjoys outsourcing violence. That little display unleashes a teal storm, and the beast gets carved up mid-charge. By the time the dust settles, the creature is shredded, proving bravado is expensive. On the tree branch, Fernand coolly checks whether Ain't came looking on purpose. Ain't denies it was intentional, then tries to walk away with fake innocence. Fernan isn't buying that act, and pokes at his prince family networking habits. So Ain't finally drops a name, Arya Fridian. Like that explains everything. Fernan gets called out for obvious flirting, while Ain't looks annoyingly self-aware. Then the future friend proposal lands flat, because neither of them is actually impressed. Under the forest canopy, Fernan toys with Ain't, smugly framing age as leverage, and Ain't fires back that Prince Elector blood does not make them buddies. Then the conversation turns political, because apparently noble networking is the real battlefield, while Fernan needles him about Fridian, and Ain't pretends that changes nothing, except the poor guy instantly exposes how shamelessly he's been calculating every favor. Fernan then announces his ridiculous goal, collecting all 6 Prince Electors like trophies, but Ain't's face says that pitch landed with all the elegance of a brick, until the forest suddenly panics, and someone orders the professor immediately, because a water dragon crashes the calm like nature itself got offended. And now even Fernan is staring, wondering what fresh nonsense just arrived. Deep in the forest, the branch-top interruption starts rattling the whole expedition, while Fernan turns pursuit into a sport, smugly refusing to let Ain't escape, because the prophecy suddenly meets reality, and even he admits something has gone wrong. Then the blue spirit blurts the ugly truth. The water dragon came for the spirit herb, and the first years are ordered to scatter, which is noble code for please panic elsewhere. Ain't is told to leave the monster mess to adults, as if adults own disaster, but the evacuation only proves how fast Fernan's little profit trip became survival, because that dragon lunges in, all teeth and pressure, turning the forest into a warning, and the beast's roar makes everyone realize this is no ordinary hunt anymore, while Fernan locks onto the chaos, already sizing up the next absurd opportunity. Fernan stands smugly over Ain't, looking painfully pleased with himself, while a magic seal flares behind them, proving this joke has teeth. The prophecy starts matching reality, and even Fernan notices the mood curdle. Then the blue spirit spills the truth. The water dragon wants the herb, and the forest erupts into panic, because subtlety clearly died first. That dragon crashes in like a catastrophe with scales, fangs, and arrogance, while the first years get shoved towards safety, as if safety exists here. Ain't is told to stay back, which is adorable, given the situation. The dragon keeps tearing through the field, and nobody is pretending anymore, because Fernan already sees profit, and disaster just made room for it. The forest detonates into blue water and panic, like subtlety never existed, while the onlookers yell after the retreating threat, proving bravery is optional. Fernan briefly questions the prophecy's timing, then shrugs because consequences are expensive, and his real priority is Ain't surviving. Since unpaid investments are embarrassing, the poor boy freezes under that stare, looking like he's been caught stealing fate. So Fernan casually reminds him that protecting students is apparently part of the job, then dismisses the panic with cool contempt, ordering everyone to keep working. As Ain't blurts out his concern over the dragon, Fernan blocks the escape nonsense, and the blonde senior tries to explain himself, only to sound adorably cornered, because Fernan's final verdict is simple, awkward or not, this mess stays his. In the quiet forest clearing, Fernan keeps the pressure low and the tone sharper, casually grilling. Ain't about ore trade like mercy is just another commodity, then laughing off his own poverty. Because broken nobles still love a bargain, Ain't's nerves crack under that smug stare, and his complaint slips out embarrassingly, prompting Fernan to weaponize the old meek boy reputation, which is honestly cruelly efficient. Yet the blonde heir immediately apologizes, turning his own insult into public damage control. Fernan barely blinks, treating the apology like proof the spoiled brat can be managed. Then he finally asks for the thing Ain't wants to sell. All business now, and the answer lands in his palm as gleaming adamant, absurdly precious, because the so-called nuisance had been worrying over how to buy it all along. Fernan's hand closes on luck itself, and he plays innocent, because Ain't just offered adamant, not some roadside scrap, and the blonde heir instantly regrets bragging, but still smiles, while Fernan hears filthy, rich, and calmly weaponizes that envy. Then the idiot admits he found it in a submerged cave, which makes Fernan's eyes narrow, since that sounds absurdly profitable, so the terms arrive. Surprisingly fair for such blatant leverage, and Ain't realizes selling it quickly, beats chasing auction glory, but the cave reeks of danger, the kind that gets people targeted, and Fernan, naturally, is already asking why he should fear it. Fernan flashes the kind of smile that means murder, or business, while Ain't panics over the Saint Bird heart and water dragon debt, but the blonde senior still trusts him, which is adorable and stupid, because Fernan clearly knows that favor points are just leverage. Then he reminds Ain't he saved his life, twice if needed, and casually threatens to remember this day when bargains turn nasty. So Ain't, sweating through the bravado, agrees to the contract, while Fernan laughs, already preparing the paperwork like a born shark. Even Ain't starts wondering what that beggar comment really meant, and the mansion gate answers as the servant returns with updates. Back at the Duke's estate, the messenger casually opens with Fernan's disappearance, and that smug little heir acts surprised, like he hasn't been profiteering off chaos, because the room is now packed with mithril and adamant, making Ain't look spiritually broke, while Fernan coolly brags he mined some, bought some, and hoarded the rest, then measures the crystals like a merchant, not a noble. Because revenue is the religion here, and when the idea of selling comes up, he laughs it off, obviously offended by common sense, before shifting the real question to what hell make from it, and out comes a colossal ego golem, glowing like a disaster with a bank account, while knights and their loyal steeds get paraded as the normal standard, and elves, of course, get spirits for companions, because merchants can't have nice myths. Merchant loneliness becomes the joke, and Fernan makes it everyone's problem, because he solves absurdity by commissioning a giant ego golem, then casually admits the trick costs obscene money, like revenue is scripture, and the war with demons pitch somehow makes that delusion sound almost practical, so he calls that nightmare-era bodyguard investment, not vanity. How adorable. While the attendant silently decides this smug disaster must stay manageable, but Fernan still wants numbers, asking how colossal his toy can get, and when told 10 meters, he acts shocked, then doubles down on cool, except the red-eyed headache returns, as if power itself is protesting, and the messenger panics at another prophecy, because of course he does. He casually palms the proposal, already selling danger like luxury, then shrugs off pain, while the attendant realizes this menace is manageable, but the temperature check lands hard, and Fernan's face goes dead still. Lightning trauma gets blamed, because apparently even prophecy has a side effect. Then the next disaster hits, a rogue contractor crashing the yacht party, while Fernan smugly explains the yacht club's noble-only rules, connections, and absurd expense, as if tossing money at prestige somehow makes seaborne indulgence heroic, until the monster appears, and the contractor's panic turns the whole boat around. Fernan spots the face beneath the chaos, one of his own employees, and now House Pellenberg might be involved, which would be embarrassingly catastrophic. Fernan's smug little villain buff act hangs in the air, then the household servant barges in with fever, panic, and demon rumors, and Fernan narrows in, realizing the real threat has a familiar face, because one wrong move here and he's spectacularly finished, while the servant insists the Duke needs a physician, and Fernan acts fine. Then the professor warns a guest is unscheduled, which is adorable timing, because that guest is Professor Grad, wearing authority like cheap perfume, and he immediately probes the sea dragon corpse, casually insulting Fernan's appetite, so Fernan grins at the praise, but still questions the direct approach, before the whole conversation drifts back to a sea dragon with plenty of useful parts. Professor Grad needles Fernan's shady bribery habits, with zero mercy, then casually offers himself as the cleaner, more profitable shortcut, while claiming the Academy's official request makes everything look respectable, and Fernan instantly clocks the real angle behind that polished excuse, because nobody says sell me the whole thing unless money is sniffing around. So the sea dragon corpse becomes the centerpiece, not some random trophy, with every part suddenly sounding like weapons, potions, armor, and cash, which is exactly when Fernan starts thinking like a merchant again, and the professor pushes the brutal logic. Family or buyers, pick fast, because the proceeds, naturally, are going straight into professor research. In the Academy's polished salon, Fernan casually prices disaster-like inventory, while the red-bearded professor presses him for the real catch behind it, because good price is just rich man code for handing over monopoly control, and Fernan instantly wants exclusive ship rights to the Academy's future purchases, which leaves the professor blinking at the audacity, then calling it reasonable, since there's no urgent need now, but obviously there will be soon, after the monster attack and sinking yacht turn prophecy into expensive reality, and every mock battle means repairs, replacements, and one glorious cash leak, so Fernan seals it as a long-term, highly profitable business venture, with a handshake that basically says research funds, meet the Golden Turtle Company. Fernan spots the empty cooking section and instantly reads the market, smug as ever, so he sends the servant off to storage, pretending this is just routine, but the hallway already feels wrong, like the house itself is hiding a disaster. And inside the library, he starts pricing the basics like a merchant, not a student, while a spreading black curse stains the room, because apparently subtlety died here. Then the demonic report arrives, claiming Ain't Armand is clean, and Barian went feral, except that story collapses fast, since Kelburden should have tracked mana after defeat, but someone interfered midstream, and Fernan's face says he hates loose ends, because the traces were erased so thoroughly. Even a normal clue would blush, so when asked if there's any way to find out, the answer hangs grim and expensive. Fernan refuses the easy answer, because he wants the truth, not excuses. Inside the library, he pivots to the next plan, while black curse stains creep behind him, and his suspicion spikes hard, since Calburden should have sensed demonic energy already. The traces were wiped clean, so he wonders if this whole mess was staged, or maybe someone knows their existence, which suddenly makes Fernan's stare turn colder. He dismisses the impossible quietly, then warns that secrecy still matters in a world this silent. So he settles on coincidence, but still tells the room to stay careful from here, because revealing their weakness now would wreck every future move they've built. And besides, Ain't Armin stays the top target, with growth that's absurdly unreal. Even the first Emperor's doing is blamed, because that cursed scion clearly rattles the system. Fernan seals the warning fast, because Ain't Armin keeps climbing, and that's bad news. One cold glance says it all: don't fail him again. Ever. He files the threat away, then starts moving through the darkened library. A customer gets acknowledged at the doorway, and yes, business still comes first. Even his smug grin cannot hide the absurd request for cooking basics. The shopkeeper stays polite, because apparently have a good day is the new battlefield. Then the topic pivots hard, straight into demonic energy and timing. How convenient. The answer lands with irritating precision. 3 days ago, after dinner, with Bella. So now Bella Hohen gets name-dropped as the night-ranking case, naturally, and the real question hangs there, because the situation was clearly no accident. 3 days ago, Bella requested a duel, claiming improvement with maddening confidence, and instead of wooden practice, she pushed for real swords, because subtlety is for cowards. Her eyes stayed sharp, her stance unshaken, like Shed bought danger in bulk, and when the blades met, it was painfully obvious this was no bluff. Fernan felt the weight immediately, because Bella's sword had become heavier, faster, nastier, and every strike kept landing with embarrassing authority, as if Shed been training in secret. That wasn't just strength either, since her body itself had gotten quick enough to evade him. Bella barely looked strained, which is always rude when you're humiliating someone properly, so Fernan could only admit her growth was real, and annoyingly dramatic, meaning this little noble duel had turned into a full-blown showcase of her evolution. Bella keeps bragging her body finally obeys her, and that's her version of progress. Fernan answers with dry approval, because apparently praise makes her even smugger. Then she charges back in, all confidence and zero subtlety, demanding another round. Her sword style turns monstrous, using raw weight to smash through everything nearby. But the swing has limits up close, where speed starts mocking brute force. Fernan reads that weakness instantly, standing inches from her like an irritated judge. Then her eye flashes red, and the room realizes something just changed. Silence hits hard, because her presence suddenly feels less student, more threat. The next blast tears through the space, and Bella gets forced down. Even the floor gives up, proving her growth hit embarrassingly hard. Bella's blade carves the floor apart, and suddenly the cute duel gets expensive, while Fernan watches her wreck the room like a noble tantrum with training wheels. Then she shrugs off the embarrassment, and admits her control slipped. Badly. Fernan suspects demonic energy, because apparently Barian's creepy aura left a souvenir. But Bella insists the surge was brief, and swears it felt demonic enough. Fernan still checks her condition, and she smugly claims the duel left no damage, except the real damage is obvious, because Barian had the same rotten abnormality. Fernan starts doubting himself, then wonders if he judged Bella too quickly. Bella pushes the logic further, saying he only brought it up because he cares, and Fernan, annoyingly honest, says he just wants to help in his own way. Fernan narrows his eye and starts pressing her curiosity, then mentally runs Bella through dorms, classrooms, halls, and cafeterias, only to smugly compare her spotless routine against Barian's filthy track record, and that means no trauma, no bad contacts, no easy demonic opening either, unless Ruina was somehow right, and Bella's spike matched Barian's curse. But the logic keeps collapsing, because neither of them ever met a demon, which leaves Fernan wondering if the energy slipped in unnoticed, somehow, so he brushes the doubt aside, realizing Bella might just be clean after all, until the headache detonates again, and has left grabbing his skull in disbelief. Even then, that red eye stays locked on, because something is definitely wrong. A blood-red sky choked the island, where students and residents collapsed into monsters, and madness. Fernan caught Ain's troubled face, while the boy quietly looked cursed by bad luck again. Then the whole nightmare clicked, because this scene smelled familiar, and nobody was acting normal. The hidden demon energy had been sleeping inside the students, until Andromalius finally stirred. Now the academy looked like hell's lobby, and Fernan started connecting the prophecy-sized disaster. The blue spirit screamed demon energy, insisting the students had been infected through daily life. Fernan pushed back, saying he would have noticed, which is rich considering the apocalypse around him. Gardner cut through the panic, ordering Ain't to use his mana and figure it out. Ain't followed that advice, checking the unconscious students and proving the demons were sneaky, so the verdict landed hard. The infection had been hidden all along, like a perfect little ambush. So the Academy's subtle infection was never subtle, just ridiculously patient, meaning the students needed a vessel. And Fernan immediately clocked the explosive setup. Then he realized mana was being amplified somewhere, which is never a comforting sentence. And of course the culprit was a magic circle, because evil loves decorative nonsense, so the blonde knight demanded it be destroyed, like that would magically fix everything, while the hallway of bodies and blood proved the whole scene had already soured, until Ain't spotted the ritual pattern, and finally shouted the name everyone feared. And when Bella got blamed, the noble girl's face basically became a public disaster. Fernan connected the dots instantly, betting her corruption would vanish with the circle, so the knight's grip tightened, and the verdict got uglier by the second. That crimson circle screams summoning magic, and nobody's laughing now, as Fernan clocks the demon scheme while the thing keeps ugly grinning. The creature's return looks impressive, right up until reality humiliates it, because Fernan is already in the estate, staring like bad news. He catches Bella's name in the corruption trail, and that's messy, then orders the panic stopped, dragging Luina out before the hall. The door bursts open, and Luina gets hauled into daylight fast, while Fernan and Gardner trade survival talk about Bella's infection. Luina hears she's still unaware, which is honestly the luckiest, because Fernan plans to keep Bella alive as proof, not mercy. Fernan coolly decides Luina must like him, because saving the continent is somehow the sales pitch, and he needs proof first that demonic energy is inside her body, so the rumor parade keeps rolling. Luina shows up smiling while Fernan plays righteous judge, and Bella immediately catches the stray heat, with hands yanking Bella back and the whole hall panicking, because subtlety died screaming ages ago. Luina gets dragged into daylight, still clueless, while everyone blames demons, Fernan, and bad timing, and he shrugs it off, saying he would have knocked her out anyway if she resisted. Luina then folds instantly, and promises obedience to Fernan, which is adorable and deeply suspicious, because Fernan turns right back around and demands an apology if she proves innocent, then doubles down by blaming Bella for dragging innocent little Luina into this mess, and finally orders the route map, wanting every place Luina visits, plus the source of that demonic contact. Fernan grills the others for doubting his trace hunt, already suspiciously certain, and the whole sweep comes back empty, which is almost insulting at this point. So he starts listing Bella's territory next, as if the academy itself is guilty. Dorms, lecture halls, library, cafeteria, all cleared, because the clues are playing dead. Then the cafe turns up a fresh lead, that cursed Duke book, and Fernan immediately connects it to the library too, because apparently the evidence enjoys touring campus, while Bella perks up at the romance angle, proving her priorities are still gloriously unserious, so Fernan suggests a trace might be hiding inside an object, not a place, and that book gets passed around like the dumbest, most dangerous souvenir alive. In the library, Fernan gets greeted like a walking profit report, and the smug merchant proves he already knows exactly who he's selling to, then casually pitches a book, because apparently every clue here has a storefront, while Fernan pretends not to care, but still inspects the bait like an accountant, and the merchant claims his home library is enough, which is adorable nonsense, so Fernan cuts the meeting short, leaving the others scrambling to keep up. Then the atmosphere turns nasty, as that smiling face leaks demon-grade confidence, and the polite goodbye is basically a threat dressed up as manners, because this cafe turf is reserved, and Fernan never even visited it. Inside the hidden cafe, the merchant points Fernan toward secrecy, not safety, while Bella stares him down, already regretting this ridiculous little errand, and the flashy, saintly act rolls in, all glow and no humility, because apparently even miracle salesmen need a storefront for their nonsense. Then Jace gets name-dropped as the black-haired helper behind the scheme, and the merchant starts pricing answers like a smirking little profiteer, as Fernan questions the terms, exposing how cheap everyone's faith really is, with Jace backing him up, because of course has the one proving anything, until the demon accusation lands, and the whole room turns beautifully ugly. The accusation drops hard, and Bella demands proof of demonic energy, while Fernan smugly treats panic like a scenario he already priced in, because the artifacts are supposedly flawless, and her marble starts the inspection. Then Bella introduces herself, all polished nerves and second-year authority, and Fernan, being Fernan, hands over the marble like this is routine, But the real punchline arrives when Jace gets dragged in as evidence. Yet Bella hesitates, sensing nothing demonic, just Fernand's ridiculous sales pitch, so Fernan coolly insists Jace came because he trusted his bargain. Bella finally agrees to continue, though her face screams deep regret, and the whole apology setup becomes a clean runway for Fernand's next scam. Fernan starts the marble check with that usual rich kid serenity, already smug, then his half-open eye catches trouble, because the room suddenly goes very still, the crystal brightens, and Bella panics at the color shift. Assuming demon energy, Fernan answers her confusion with the driest correction imaginable, because of course it's the opposite. The marble is built to react to demonic power. So this glow means the test passed. Bella nearly short-circuits, insisting the artifact must be broken, which is adorable, but Fernan keeps talking like a merchant closing a deal. Not a suspect under judgment, and his proof turns the whole room into a sermon about evil humans. Bella finally locks onto the new target. Realizing Jace's involvement looks terrifying now, so she reluctantly asks for Fernan's servant, and he grins like he just invoiced destiny. Dragon God? Please. Fernan turns panic into a flaming sales pitch, and Jace's name gets screamed like the explosion already chose its victim, while the cracked marble keeps hissing, proving the demon reading was bogus. Bella's horror melts into embarrassment as the broken artifact works perfectly, and Fernan calmly explains the real danger. Anyone infected by demons, so the Academy rumor mill instantly pivots from him to Jace, making Bella realize she has not caught a devil, just bad optics. Then she asks for help, because publicizing this would be catastrophically stupid, but Fernan shuts that idea down. Knowing demons vanish when exposed, and with one smug order, he tells Jace to listen closely. Fernan finally unveils his little masterpiece, a plan so smug it practically costs extra. Jace hears eliminate them all, and suddenly the room feels way less theoretical. Then he folds instantly, agreeing to the ambush like a man speedrunning regret. Rowena panics over Bella's demon problem, begging for a clean fix, but Fernan smirks, because public exposure would help the demon, not the victims, so he keeps it private, and casually insists he is not here to kill anybody, just to purge the infection. Bella, now fully exposed as the one with the terrible judgment, starts screaming about crazy eyes, while Jace gets used as the emotional hostage, proving Fernan's point the hard way. Fernan doubles down on Bella's innocence and warns the Order would crater their business. So the hand gets offered, the panic keeps spreading, and the scheme officially begins. Fernan opens with holy confidence, selling purging like a premium service. Bella and Jace hear the pitch, then accept the demon cleaning gamble. Rowena begs for mercy, and Fernan offers handholding with a lethal warranty. The spell ignites hard, turning that poor possessed body into a screaming skeleton. Bella gets tagged as clean, while everyone else panics over the collateral comedy. The room survives, which annoys Fernan almost as much as the structural integrity. He shrugs off the blast, explaining the building was engineered for abuse. Jace checks Bella's condition, already sounding like a tired dorm caretaker. The pink-haired girl is still alive, though definitely not waking anytime soon. So Fernan decides he'll haul her to the dorm and call it logistics. Rowena starts panicking over the possessed girl, while Fernan acts suspiciously smug with the antidote, insisting caution is fine because demons are lurking, and image management is for amateurs, so he orders a face-covering fix for Bella, because apparently dignity matters right before disaster, then thanks Fernan while wobbling through the cleanup, and he calls the whole Bella problem handled, because now he needs Jace to track every human touched by demonic energy, and even warns that stopping the demons would be best. Though he's still figuring out how, so he shifts to planning the yacht club mess, already mapping the future like a cheat code. After investigating infiltrators and discovering one of them is working on the yacht, he decides this is the cleanest way to prove has not tied to demons, just absurdly prepared, and if the plan succeeds, ain't better trust him completely afterward. Fernan grins like a shark, already counting friendship as future profit, and by next day, the yacht club waits like a polished money trap. That smug little smile says he's already 3 schemes ahead, while he announces hell catch the expensive fish and their because carcasses fetch more intact, naturally, if you enjoy ruthless bookkeeping, and even his restraint sounds like a threat dressed as common sense. He seals the deal with a contract twist, turning caution into leverage, then cashes in the shipwrights, congratulating everyone on the smooth robbery. Jace thanks Master Gong, but Fernan shrugs it off like routine, before the real question lands, why he wanted exclusive ships so badly. The Duke would sneer at this deal, but Fernan smells opportunity soon. So naturally, he wants the yacht staff list next, because paperwork is power. He leaves the desk talk calm and dry, claiming no suspicious names yet. Then comes the classic Fernan move, trusting ain't to handle everything anyway. Apparently, that also means the fish are demons, which is adorable bookkeeping. And yes, Ain't supposedly stays on his side, against all common sense. So the hunt shifts forward, because the expensive fish are finally on notice. Even the condition check stays smug, thanks to Herbs and Saint Bird's magic. The magical profit plan is simple: replenish power, then sell adamant for money. Which is why having one wealthy ally suddenly feels ridiculously reassuring. They're already floating the wild idea of making Fernan an ally, because apparently a wealthy backer is suddenly war funding, not romance, and Fernan's logic stays brutal. If idiots see demons, they spend, but without proof, he won't worship paranoia or trust anything blindly. Then he raises the bigger threat, Fallenberg's old demon reputation, meaning money matters because those merchants would sell morals to demons. So the whole family survives by playing greedy, not honorable, and that's disgusting, while Ain't insists Fernan is merciful, noble, and impossible to ignore, which gets mocked instantly, since Fernan is basically the rich guy glitch, until someone spots danger nearby, and the table panic starts fast. Veloci Vindirk shows up like he owns the academy, smug as ever, then casually announces a yacht club invitation, because of course he did, and Jace realizes this is a noble children's playground, not charity. So Veloci explains membership needs a sponsor, then hands him one anyway, while Jace hesitates, sensing the kind of trouble money can smell, and the blue spirit starts shrieking that Veloci is baiting him, but Jace still softens, thinking maybe backing out would be smarter, until Professor Grad mentions the Academy branch and exclusive ship rights. Then the old man cranks up the deal, Sea Dragon byproducts included, which is just Veloci turning a social club into a 20-year monopoly. A startled interruption cracks the tension, because the yacht club trap isn't finished yet, and the blue spirit erupts over sea travel, while Veloci keeps grinning like a shark. In the Academy library, Ain't gets nudged about the trip, and somehow caves, with Veloci tossing him the agreement while acting absurdly casual, because of course he does. Then the deal gets more ridiculous, as routes, arrangements, and demon bait are all mentioned, and Ain't finally starts asking the obvious question: how many arrangements exist anyway? Only for another noble, Bella Hoen, to surface and sharpen the whole scheme's embarrassment, because this was never charity, it was membership politics wrapped in expensive manners, and Veloci smugly admits she already knew, which makes the trap even funnier, while Bella's connection to the yacht club turns the entire thing into pure high society chaos. Veloci blocks Ruina's membership, then coolly turns rejection into leverage, asking why her mind flipped so fast, like this wasn't extortion in silk gloves, because she already smelled a vile presence, and called it out like trash, while Jace admits the yacht club trap was prepared, and a useful ally helps. Then Bella Hoen explodes into the story, promising revenge with righteous nonsense, and suddenly the whole scheme is just high society spite wearing academy uniforms, as Veloci smugly asks how burned up Jace actually got, because apparently magic cleanup, before the conversation cools off into lunch plans, with everyone pretending this is normal, and when they mention another lecture, the pair starts moving on without ceremony, leaving only the awkward aftermath, and Bella's ruined drama, hanging behind them. The red-haired heir collapses into thought, already cornered by his own game, because even Veloci Vindirk can taste when a deal starts smelling awful, and the noble title he flaunts keeps getting shredded by prophecies, nasty little punchline, once the so-called perfect backing gets wrecked by Ain't Armin's momentum, embarrassingly, leaving the prince he trusted abandoned, which is hilarious in the cruelest way. Then Jace reveals the yacht club invitation was real, and Veloci wanted in, while Bella erupts in jealous outrage, acting like betrayed nobility is a personality, and suddenly the whole scandal looks like academy gossip wearing expensive perfume, so Veloci casually pivots to lunch plans, because of course he does, and the pair strolls off, leaving Bella's meltdown as yesterday's tragic trash. Veloci nearly chokes on the word lunch, because this social trap is getting ridiculous, while the blonde prince needles him for looking lonely, and for once has not wrong. Then Ain't blinks at the accusation, wondering if this whole mess is somehow mine, before Veloci laughs it off, blaming the second prince for abandoning him like spare furniture, and the joke lands hard, because he already spilled everything to the wrong man, meaning the Schwaben-Armin feud is now a screaming disaster, which is just perfect, so Veloci calls Ludger Ain't's friend, then smirks like the damage was intentional, and casually apologizes before inviting lunch, because apparently chaos is best served politely, with Ludger smiling sweetly while wondering what his opponent is scheming now, but Veloci only clamps down on the deal, acting like refusal lives in someone else's dreams. Veloci shuts the door on nostalgia, turning old rivalry into a punchline, then flatly calls the failed scheme worthless, like spoiled stock on a shelf, while the blue spirit panics, insisting Kalbrudern still has real skill, and Velosi smugly thanks him. Because bragging looks easier than humility, then the spirit drops the brutal truth that Velosi's friend count is tragic, and even lunch becomes evidence, as he eats alone under that accusation, so Velosi pins the blame on Schwaben, making the loneliness officially political, and the blue flame declares loser solidarity, because apparently insults need teamwork. Then Velosi shrugs and says getting close to Kalbrudern is the future, before dragging a silver bottle forward, recruiting him for the founder's treasure hunt. The blue spirit greenlights the idea, and the blonde noble already smells trouble. Then he weighs pocket realm storage against staying useful outside, because convenience is apparently a luxury, while the spirit savagely drags Schwaben's betrayal into the conversation, like family drama with extra venom, and the blonde guy answers by asking how he's supposed to carry a sword, so the spirit reveals the trick. Mithril drinks souls, and does whatever the plot needs, then demonstrates the method with obnoxious flair, like showing off a toy nobody asked for, before casually shrinking the weapon and making the whole battlefield accessory-sized, which leaves the blonde noble stunned, because apparently tiny swords are revolutionary now, so the spirit suggests wearing it as a necklace, claiming ancient trend authority, and suddenly everybody's acting like this ridiculous drip is irresistible, because ego loves jewelry. It's tacky, and the spirit says that like a fashion tyrant, while Jace deadpans that tiny sword can just live in his pocket. Somewhere else, the Scarlet Turtle stands by, ready for Academy deployment, and the aide keeps promising monsters will trigger their little operation, but the real issue is the crew's cover story, meant to spy on demons, because even the wardrobe room is now part of this ridiculous intelligence game. Then Jace hears the demon rumor source, and gets called impossible, yet he shrugs off the accusation, claiming spirits already overestimate his loyalty. Since the Dragon God Order knows demons, the plan only gets uglier, and the whole mess ends with him deciding to hunt them down. They're laying out the whole infiltration playbook, identity first, then motive, and the demonic mastermind backdrop makes the whole scheme look embarrassingly theatrical. Meanwhile, the real pawn is Ain't Armin, conveniently named for the briefing, because somehow his stupid little problem is tied to all this mess, while Velosi hands over the Saintbird's heart, acting like generosity isn't just leverage, and the crowd's trust lands on Ain't Armin tonight, which is adorable, except Velosi already admits he miscalculated, then blames his own expensive taste, so the blonde noble finally notices the school uniform, like a late, confused prosecutor, and Velosi shrugs off the complaint, mocking her concern as needless expense, then smooths it over by saying he did buy one, just not his style. Under moonlit tension, Velosi opens the play, dangling power like Prophet, and Rowena stares at the offer, visibly regretting this entire arrangement, while Jace gets introduced as the partner, because of course has stuck escorting him. Then Velosi smugly invents rules, pretending handholding is some sacred mission, but he immediately backpedals, calling it unnecessary while still needing her nearby, since he already invested too much, and suddenly the masked nobles start circling. Meanwhile, he wants the friendship stage show, so nobody steals her from him, and the ship finally launches, because even the water knows this scam is over, as Bella gets dragged into the demon talk, with everyone betting on her loyalty, except Rowena is fuming harder, and Velosi just grins. Well done. A single startled eye catches the room, and the whole game tilts, as Velosi trades sharp smiles with Rowena, turning tension into entertainment, while the Academy quietly announces the Schwaben and Armin meeting, because Ludger's polished stare says this prince-sized disaster is deliberate, and the masked blonde beside him looks ready to survive pure politics. Then the prince receives his greeting, with Velosi bowing like etiquette is optional, except the blue spirit detonates in outrage, shrieking over Armin's humiliation, and mocking that head bow to that bastard, which is honestly iconic, so Velosi plants a hand on his shoulder, reminding everyone about Academy rules. Then he smugly adds seniority still matters, because of course he does. Ludger keeps his banquet composure, while the room quietly remembers his danger. Then he spots Ain't, because apparently trouble keeps arriving dressed as etiquette. The blue spirit explodes into blame, making Aint's embarrassment everybody's entertainment. Velosi answers with lazy, aristocratic confidence, already bored by the whining. Ain't tries deflecting the heat, but the suspicion just keeps piling higher. Velosi casually narrows the field, naming 3 suspects like this is business. Gardner gets drafted into the logic parade, and even that sounds annoyingly smug. Ludger's influence takes the first hit, because yes, the prince is being profiled. Then Fernand lands on the shortlist, rich enough to buy the room twice, and finally Velosi himself, because subtlety clearly died before dessert. The blue spirit keeps staring, baffled by Velosi's unreadable little champagne problem, then panics over the last suspect. because apparently nobody escapes this social autopsy, while Veloci calmly entertains the mystery, treating the whole mess like a private joke. Across the deck, he explains that inviting Fernan was only a convenient trap, and the black-haired target gets cornered harder, because avoiding everyone forever was never the plan. So Veloci starts profiling power itself, mocking the prince's missing royal immunity, then shrugs at senior privilege, as if nobles are just higher-priced furniture, before sliding the blame onto the girl attached to Luina Burchev, and finally calling out the protection game, since she's been blocked from joining all along. Then comes the last jab, suggesting that long familiarity is the real scandal. On the deck, Fernan cuts the meeting short, and the poor bastard protests, while Veloci calmly plots demon hunting, pretending socializing was never the point. Then the room turns into a search party, because Luina vanishing is inconvenient, and the prince strolls in smiling, handing out fake warmth like charity, making Fernan awkwardly recognize him, then fumble the Luina connection, before Ain't gets dragged into the spotlight, and Fernan nearly misnames him, so Veloci needles the whole setup, asking where Fernan has been lately, then exposes the obvious joke: they barely know each other, despite everyone watching, and when Luina denies friendship, Veloci instantly clocks the long, suspicious familiarity, because in this circus, even lies blush harder than the possessed. He looks oddly disappointed, because prophecy apparently loves petty humiliations, and the masked black-haired noble is busy pretending Luina's friendship was a smart investment as the red-haired noblewoman cuts the room loose, while the banquet keeps smiling, with the prince watching, convinced their awkward closeness is somehow strategic and dangerous. Then Veloci starts talking demons, yacht trouble, and Luina's suspicious connection, while the red-haired noblewoman calmly insists worst-case planning beats panic every time, because the students were already prepared, and surviving sinking ships beats heroics, and Veloci coldly predicts academy traitors, hiding among the polished idiots. Then the blue spirit pipes up about the founding emperor's leftover mess, and suddenly, the whole banquet feels like a trap, with monsters, betrayal, and sinking water. Ledger Needles, Ain't by name, already smelling prophecy and opportunism, while Doom gets served beside the goblets like champagne with a body count, and Ain't, being cornered, still gets offered drink service like this is etiquette, but Veloci coolly reframes the whole disaster as demon bait and strategic divergence, then takes a sip so casually. Even the prince's smug face starts cracking, because Ain't nearly panics, realizing Veloci somehow guessed his identity instantly, and the little blue spirit explodes with outrage, tossing magical blame everywhere as the room sways and goblets crash, turning the banquet into a mess, with Ain't demanding answers while Veloci keeps him pinned like a solved equation, and that pendant strike lands the final reminder that this conspiracy bites hard. The banquet turns tense fast, with Veloci pinning the problem close, and the first clash bursts out like a knife fight nobody invited, while the second exchange nearly caves the whole room in, because Gardner's polished ego keeps meeting Veloci's absurdly brutal timing, and Ain't finally realizes the aura he sensed was pure disaster. As Veloci reads his panic like a merchant spotting fake currency, then the blue spirit detonates the room with demon accusations, leaving Ain't stunned, because even his face says this is not normal, and the dark spiritual pressure confirms the conspiracy is absolutely rotten, with Veloci still standing there like he already owns the aftermath. That smug spirit face hangs there, already losing its nerve to Veloci, and the whole hall still shudders under his ridiculous, profit-minded pressure, while Ain't is left staring at the wreckage, finally sensing pure disaster, because Veloci reads panic like counterfeit money, and he never overpays. Then the blue spirit explodes with demon claims, turning whispers into panic as a sea of worms surges in, disgusting everyone with perfect timing, and the massed crew starts freaking out, proving courage was never stocked, while the monsters keep rolling over the deck, swallowing calm whole, so the blonde noble screams for real combat instead of useless gawking, and Veloci watches the ship burn, like he already owns the ashes. The deck shudders under Veloci's landing, and the disaster finally gets a pulse, because the sea worms are here now, vomiting chaos from every direction, while Ain't wears that same stunned look, realizing this mess is professionally rude. Then Gardner tries to posture, but Veloci's stare already bankrupts his confidence, as the blue spirit erupts with demon warnings, turning gossip into panic, and the worms keep climbing over everything, like the ocean learned spite. So the blonde noble demands real combat, not this expensive staring contest, but Veloci slips through the assault, making every strike look embarrassingly late, while Ain't gets warned he's facing an assassin, and still not enough. Then the crowd panics for the obvious fix. Throw him overboard. The deck buckles hard, and the seafloor erupts beneath the ship, while Veloci stays absurdly calm, like disaster is just another expense, because everyone assumes the fall killed him, right along with that pride. Then the panic spreads as the sea worms start stirring below, and Veloci keeps carving through them, turning every strike into humiliation. His stare alone is enough to make Gardner abandon his grand act. As the crowd finally realizes the demons are targeting this ship, then the colossal sea serpent rises, and the knights scramble forward, forcing Ain't to swallow his shock as the monster becomes undeniable, and the whole vessel teeters, proving this floating trap is done for. Veloci's purple blast detonates the monster, sending the whole deck into panic, and the blonde noble realizes too late he misread the dead rumor, while the spirit screams warnings, because the serpent's body crashes through the chaos, swallowing bravado like cheap wine. Then Ain't's sword gets shoved aside as everyone finally blurts his name in alarm, with the prodigy sprawled in seawater, apparently surviving pure spite and bad luck, while masked sailors lose all dignity and bark for the crowd to clear out, as the massive sea serpent explodes upward and turns the ship into a joke, leaving only foaming water and wreckage where their confidence used to stand, and Ain't staggers awake, staring at his own sword like it betrayed him, before the blonde kid asks what happened, only to learn the serpent got him first. The sea serpent's breath freezes, Ain't solid, and that genius move looks heroic, until the ocean finishes the job. He blacked out, got swallowed by the sinking ship, and was dragged back by stubborn intervention. Then the blonde knight cuts through the nonsense, confirming yes, Ain't can actually pull off strange tricks, because that sword is apparently less a weapon and more a royal support system. How embarrassingly convenient, and now he wakes on an island, staring around like the universe misplaced him on purpose, only to hear this was the exact place the founding emperor supposedly left a crucial item, which means his random shipwreck was, somehow, miraculous luck. And everyone starts celebrating like destiny paid rent, while the blonde knight rushes him toward the treasure before rescue arrives, because time is apparently a luxury, but Ain't still freezes up, realizing he has no idea where he even landed, and the answer lands hard. This island is the target, so start digging or stay stranded. Ain't hears the ground settle, and the blonde knight's face says this gets worse fast, because two demons show up, turning one problem into a ridiculous double feature. Then the blue spirit warns him to brace up, like that somehow helps, so he answers with a blade flash and dives straight into the mess, while the three-way clash explodes around him, all rings, sparks, and bad decisions, and that black-haired woman watches from the side, looking annoyingly composed, as the blonde knight cuts through the chaos, moving like a man who hates delays, only for Ain't to get launched backward, proving humility still exists, while the masked demon reaches in with that smug little claw, thinking it owns him, but Ain't grits through the hit, and the whole ambush suddenly feels doomed. Ain't gets launched skyward while two smug attackers close in below, and the poison spell slams down, turning the whole field toxic. Then Gardner cuts through the haze, already bleeding but refusing drama, while the others finally notice the wound and panic over poison, because Ain't somehow survives, looking way too tired for this nonsense, as Gardner orders Aura up, like that fixes everything, obviously, and the demon pair keeps taunting him, convinced he is easy prey, but Ain't still cannot muster the energy for a heroic response. So Gardner snaps his name and yanks him back into the fight, right as two sand tornadoes erupt, swallowing the battlefield whole. Gardner freezes the chaos with one sharp look, and the battlefield whispers who. Then the spirit problem detonates into a crimson storm, because subtlety died ages ago. Veloci just stares through the mess, looking annoyingly composed for a disaster magnet. Ain't is still half buried in this nightmare, surviving on fumes and stubbornness. Gardner cuts in beside him, practically daring death to complain about poison. The masked nobles and attackers scatter upward, which is hilarious considering their confidence minutes ago. The blonde woman crashes into the fray with a sword, elegant and terrifying. Blue power slashes through the air, as if commentary itself learned to fight. Dust and impact explode everywhere, burying the ambush in pure humiliation. And just like that, the whole field gets swallowed by Gardner's overwhelming tempo. The ambushers panic first, because their confidence just got medically removed, as blue lightning judgment slams through them and turns bravado into smoke, while the blonde noble keeps her face clean, even mid-disaster, and Gardner kneels there like death's favorite employee, unfazed by poison. Then Veloci watches the whole circus, still somehow looking expensive, while the beast's claws miss, because intimidation apparently outranks physics. The masked intruder gets launched upward, proving arrogance has terrible flight control. Then the pale-haired noble gasps, realizing Gardner's tempo is already humiliating everyone. Blue power tears through the ambush, and the entire field buckles, so Gardner checks on Ain't, because apparently victory still has manners. Veloci sizes up the poison problem, looking annoyingly unbothered, while Ain't panics in perfect blonde kid fashion, hearing the bad news. Then the antidote arrives with smug efficiency, because drama needs logistics, and Veloci calmly asks about Ain't, as if this mess is scheduled. Gardner, meanwhile, decides losing someone was apparently on purpose, which is exactly the kind of nonsense that only sounds smart after violence. Then the long-haired woman finishes the wrecked target and calls him merely unconscious, while Veloci notices the demons are real, right on cue for the skeptics. The trapped monster finally gets skewered, proving arrogance has awful durability, and Veloci still acts informed, because of course he already expected this. Veloci had already audited every guild worker's past, hunting the traitors, and the smug bastard still had the nerve to ask who was here, while the merchant guild chief accused the intruder of infiltration, bleeding confidence, only for the supposed villain to rot under a poison curse like cheap meat. So the blonde knight blurted out a self-destruction spell, panicking beautifully, and the long-haired woman snapped his name, because somebody finally needed backup. Then Veloci's red sigil tore through the barrier, exploding the demon's little plan, leaving Ain't staring at Fernand through the smoke, stunned but still breathing. As the barrier held, the black-haired ally and blonde noblewoman stayed ready, and the woman finally wondered if Veloci had predicted even the self-destruction stunt. Veloci shrugs off the trap, because dying here would be embarrassingly cheap, then casually reminds the others he's not foolish enough to miss the prophecy, while Bella gets dragged back into the mess and everybody forgets Grace, as the squad suddenly remembers her, and Veloci summons the real culprit. The possessed noble finally steps out, glowing like a cursed disaster, and after confirming the demons, Veloci demands the evidence, not sympathy. Even when Bella protests the unfairness, he just keeps pressing the case, because her burnt-out aura is still wrecked, and that complaint is adorable, so he reassures Bella while the others bristle, pretending this wasn't planned, and then he flat-out admits she wasn't brought here for journalism. The lake goes dead silent, and everyone feels that ocean-born menace. Even the blonde noble freezes, because that cry was never ordinary. Then the water explodes into a sea serpent, right on cue. So yes, it really crawled all the way here. Unbelievable but deliciously stupid. Fernand wastes no time, tossing Luina into the front lines with brutal confidence. He snatches Ain't away too, deciding the boy belongs near prophecy, not panic. Bella immediately objects, worried Fernand might bolt, as if he's some runaway child, but Luina coolly insists he isn't that pathetic, and will return. Then Fernand dives back into the carnage, dragging the serpent toward the founding emperor's relic. Ain't finally realizes Fernand can still ditch them, and somehow that's reassuring. Veloci thanks them like a man collecting payment for surviving. Then he calmly benches Ain't, claiming this forest is safer, somehow. But the sea serpent mess proves Peace never got the memo, obviously. Veloci sends Gardner off, while insisting Ain't needs the prophecy spotlight. He even explains poison cleanup like a luxury service, very classy. Gardner presses Fernand for the truth, and Veloci keeps drifting away. The blonde finally snaps, demanding answers about the prophecy nonsense. Veloci just grins, because yes, he already knows everything. Then he casually confirms that Ain't is tangled in prophecies too, which leaves everyone staring, because this disaster just got more expensive. The prophecy talk hits like a knife, and Gardner finally hears demons, while the old founding emperor warning hangs over everything like bad weather. Ain't then drops the bomb that he's that descendant, though he barely knew, and Fernand smugly clocks that Luina already smelled the prophecy mess, too, which sends Ain't into full detective mode, because of course Fernand was preparing, and Fernand just shrugs, saying he traced the demon trail through merchant funding. Ain't then admits he never even knew the prophecy existed, shocking nobody, so Fernand explains he chased the same ugly energy and saw demons firsthand, then reveals Luina was already investigating with him, meaning this was never ordinary, and with everyone reeling, he calmly decides they'd better get moving. Fernand shuts the panic down, waving off details, and Ain't reluctantly follows. The blue spirit barks left, like this whole disaster somehow needs navigation. Then it smugly claims the poison is nearly gone, and the Emperor's leftovers wait ahead. Ain't plays dumb, while Fernand coolly acts like this island plan was obvious. He even jokes Ain't landed perfectly where the thing is, because luck is apparently stalking him. And yes, today is supposedly his lucky day, which sounds hilarious right now. Ain't gets slammed by reality, almost dead to monsters, almost dead to demons. Yet Fernand treats that as proof the founding emperor is guiding them. Naturally, then he admits he only watched because Fernand arrived first, already chasing demons. So the whole ugly trail started earlier than expected, and the demons moved first. The blue spirit praises Bircheff's strength, and the blonde knight pretends that's normal. Then he admits those demons folded fast, while his own pride still limps behind. Ain't gets compared to a year behind him, which is brutal and hilarious, and Fernand shrugs off the gap. Name-dropping allies like power is a shopping list. The spirit snaps back about Pellenberg, warning anyone who sold to demons was garbage, but Fernand dismisses ancient grudges, because apparently 1,000 years buys no immunity. Then the argument turns to Veloci, and suddenly demon fighting sounds embarrassingly easy. Ain't fires back that nobody needs a courtroom drama. Not when prejudice is this stupid. Fernand answers by admitting burdens only matter if they truly become allies, and the whole thing ends with a smug is this it vibe, like trouble just arrived. The blue spirit cheerfully pushes miracle medicine, acting like bad advice is brilliance, while the blonde kid stares at a tree and hears the pitch anyway. Then the nonsense escalates, because the spirit orders him to stab the tree, and the trunk answers with a burst of light, like it hates being interrupted. Apparently the founding emperor made this contraption. So the mystery suddenly gets historical, and the kid learns the treasure inside is not some ordinary herb, obviously. Then the whole forest erupts as the tree gets blown apart offshore, while a sea monster lunges in, ruining everybody's peaceful little miracle hunt. A red-haired powerhouse drops into the chaos and starts carving through disaster, and just like that, the situation goes from forest medicine to full-blown carnage. Ain't's warning hangs in the air, and the spirit's answer gets uglier, faster, because the tree detonates in sacred light, proving this hunt was never ordinary. Then the forest tears open as a sea worm crashes in, spoiling everything, while the blue-haired spirit keeps clowning on him, acting way too pleased. And now the red-haired blade master enters, meeting a monster bigger than her ego. With one glowing sword ready to slice through the chaos like it owes her money, the beast lashes back, but she plants her footing and refuses to flinch. Then the attack lands clean, blasting the creature across the battlefield, and her face says this was barely a warm-up, which is terrifying, because the whole miracle hunt just turned into a massacre with excellent timing. Their steel barrier is absurdly stubborn, so Veloci keeps testing it, until the monstrous worm rises, and even the smug crowd quiets down, while the red-haired noble panics, realizing brute force is suddenly useless, because the demon-tainted body won't die, no matter how lethal the damage. So Veloci decides Ain't is the missing key, naturally making him the accessory. Then a blazing strike tears through the beast, and everyone forgets to breathe, as the blonde knight's judgment freezes, watching that monster-sized target collapse, and the red-haired noble barely processes the result, already spotting something worse, because the serpent crumples under the shockwave, with Veloci looking disgustingly satisfied, leaving Ain't staring back, as if this whole disaster was always the plan. The founding emperor's miracle medicine was basically a designer cheat code, because it only mattered if your bloodline stayed embarrassingly light-aligned, and it was meant to forge Armin heirs into sword legend machines, unless someone already matched that element, in which case, congratulations, you win harder. That was Ain't's problem, now turning every swing into a saintly massacre, so the beast gets hammered with light until its arrogance starts collapsing, while the enemy body keeps standing, proving brute force is now obsolete, and the old texts crawl back in, worshipping the founder's radiant technique, as humanity's miracle slashes through despair and makes darkness look amateur, leaving that radiant sword to hit the soul itself, finally, mercilessly. The black-haired heir is practically savoring the genius of this disaster, while the beast's overhyped defenses get shredded by that legendary record, and Ain't Armin gets named as the Academy's walking bad luck charm, turning him into humanity's unlikely ace against demons. How flattering, because the monster still stands, smugly proving brute force looks outdated now. Then the old founder's miracle gets dragged into the spotlight, not subtleties, as Gardner quietly confirms Armin's swordwork really is the real deal, and the crew admits he saved them, despite his charmingly modest nonsense, even calling the kill basically free. Like this was all a casual errand, so the only problem left is escape, because someone has to pick them up. The sea beast looms like disaster itself, while the black-haired heir casually stakes claim, and the pink-haired noble snaps back, refusing charity, because apparently dignity survives apocalypse. Then the heir keeps pushing his payment agenda, until the pink-haired woman finally concedes, with the blonde boy reluctantly agreeing too, and the greedy genius wearing a smug little victory smile, only for the others to finally call him Fernan, which somehow makes his money talk even funnier, because now he's grilling the blonde swordsman about demon hunting, as if chaos were a career fair, and the blonde's logic lands hard. Corrupted people mean real demons are definitely coming too, so the Academy kid volunteers to help, glowing with embarrassing sincerity for once, while Fernan privately schemes to recruit him, wearing that villainously pleased smile, and just like that, the plan shifts to extraction, because someone still has to pick them up. In the Academy office, Veloci jokes that ship lessons are the new battlefield curriculum, then casually flashes his money game, because apparently disaster is just another investment, while the attendant questions the timing, and Velosi acts unimpressed, like foresight is his hobby. Next, he points at the ego golem blueprint, treating the whole build like a business side quest, admitting he only started now, because apparently even genius needs free time to be greedy. Then the secretary asks about demon infiltration, and Velosi confirms the merchant guild got hit first, with employees somehow treating the infiltrators like old co-workers, which is honestly embarrassing. Velosi immediately clocks the absurdity, calling it psychological magic with a straight face, and after a little more digging, he decides demons specialize in twisting minds and souls, so the plan hardens. Because when souls get hacked, someone has to buy the rescue. Something red and horrible stirs, and even Velosi wonders if demons meddled, but he barely flinches. Because prophecy never scared this walking prophet ledger, the attendant brings word about captured demons, and Velosi instantly pivots underground. He orders the captives broken if needed, then calmly claims class matters more. A duke's message arrives with Freudian's support, plus expensive spirit stones. Obviously, that makes Velosi the transport boss, and everyone else just follows the paperwork. He still questions why him specifically, while side eyes keep measuring his usefulness. Elsewhere, nobles admit the demon shock was real, though the demon theory stays messy. They worry Fernan's silence means danger, because nobody sane moves this prepared. Still, they trust he has a plan, which is usually the scary part. Inside the academy hall, they finally admit the partnership has become public business, and the pink-haired noble starts backing away from the weirdness with careful politeness, while the long-haired girl needles her about Fernand Pellenberg, that infamous money-first monster, only to get a dry reminder that this whole alliance is really demon hunting, which makes the whole friendship accusation look hilariously shallow, as if nobles ever manage sincerity. Then the crowd's attention drifts to Fernand's composure, because the man treats burden like a discount, and that confidence keeps spreading, since even his enemies start calling it a smarter mood, while he calmly decides demons are easier to discuss with Fernand than to overthink alone. So the alliance hardens into usefulness, with Luina suddenly becoming a recurring advantage, and the real bomb lands when Bella gets exposed as already corrupted, proving the rumors were never enough. The demon warning lands hard, because tainted souls always spiral into monsters. So the blue spirit pushes allies together, and Velosi heads for reinforcements. That reinforcements pitch? A certain blonde heavyweight, already handpicked by reputation. Then Rowena corners Ain't, and his name alone triggers instant recognition. He tries the hostile nobility routine, but she's already here on demon business. Worse, he is the exact contact Fernand supposedly sent, charmingly inconvenient. Rowena keeps pressing, and Ain't finally admits the awkward appointment. He says he is helping Fernand fight demons, and needs her. Velosi gets praised for skill, which is almost insulting in its politeness. Then the redhead explodes, offended that the guy who beat him is admiring him. Even dead, the stubborn blonde refuses to help. Because pride loves drama. Then Rowena drops the name Ferran, and Ain't finally gets recognized, with Velosi's yearmate status turning into premium alliance bait. Naturally, while the prince handpicked heavyweight starts pitching teamwork like it's a luxury service, Ain't admits the whole meeting feels suspicious, so Ferran's order is clarified, and the blonde simply points at him as the recruit in question, which sends Rowena spiraling when the demon accusation gets dragged back up, so Ain't awkwardly checks the timeline like a man dodging paperwork, and that old defeat gets exposed as the moment Ferran supposedly turned, leaving the redhead rattled, because Velosi's survival keeps rewriting everybody's confidence. Ferran's warning lands like a slap, and the blonde finally hears the demon angle. The hallway turns icy as gossip spreads, while armored students pretend not to stare. Ain't gets cornered as Rowena demands answers, and that name drags everything open. Ferran panics, because lunch plans are somehow worse than death. Apparently, the academy backdrop looks noble, but the real scandal is public humiliation. Rowena snaps about secrecy, then blurts out Ain't's name like a cursed confession. Velosi watches the meltdown, smug as ever, while Ferran starts crying dramatically. He denies blackmail, then pivots to Ain't, because reputation management is harder than honesty. The glove-clad grip and smug refusal say enough, no judges needed, so Ferran endures lunch with him, while everybody else smells a scandal. In the academy hall, Velosi weaponizes gossip, making friendship sound like a legal threat, while Ain't's face crumples under the cursed nickname, because apparently embarrassment hits harder than demons. Then Rowena fires back, linking Ain't to the whole disaster and exposing Velosi's smug setup, and Velosi casually claims sticking with Ain't might uncover the demon behind her ruin, which makes Rowena question why anyone would kneel to a knight who still looks this defeated, so she snaps awake, deciding revenge is better than despair. and Veloci pretends not to enjoy it, then the logic gets uglier, since Ain't's target is clearly the demons, not the drama, so Veloci orders cooperation with the enemy. Like that's the most normal alliance in history, and the grip on the weapon says Ain't has already been roped into this mess because now he's fighting for demon elimination and ruinous revenge in one glorious disaster. The night crowd is already orbiting that smug, red-haired noble, and her help lands hard, while the academy snaps into monster research class, where top students get called out like inventory. Then the missing Fernan becomes the joke of the hour, because skipping practicals is apparently his hobby, until the professor finally confirms the name. And yes, the academy's golden headache shows up late again, but Veloci slides in like royalty, grinning as if punctuality were beneath his brand. So the red-haired girl grills him for ditching class, and he acts absurdly casual, while Veloci smugly argues everyone's already here, as if chaos were attendance. Then he drops the cooperation thesis, turning lightning, magic, and terror into a team project, because some monsters are too tough for blades alone, and Ain't's being dragged into that logic, so now demon hunting, night teamwork, and revenge all get shoved into one ugly bargain. So this is the Academy's beloved dummy, a golem, and Fernand's already smug, because these copies mimic monster traits, though the real thing still moves nastier. Then the professor throws the room into battle mode, unleashing towering stone brutes, while one unlucky student gets flattened under the bright, very embarrassing showcase, and now the rankings are live, with Carlos and Alia clocking absurdly fast times. Next come Ludger Schwaben and Almond Donnerts, another shiny pair, stealing attention, as the professor calls Fernan Pellenberg and Luina Burchef, the Academy's new spectacle, and the monster briefing gets uglier, because this Goliath is 3 meters of stone pain, which is exactly the kind of problem that makes everyone stare and quietly panic until the final verdict lands. It tanks physical and magic attacks, but nothing is unbeatable. In the Academy Hall, Veloci calmly identifies the Goliath's neck, and Ain't actually keeps up, because the monster is fast for a slab of moving disaster, though he refuses to flinch. Then the plan gets uglier, as Ain't takes the front, and the impact explodes anyway, while the professors and onlookers start panicking, wondering if second years are this doomed, until Veloci and Rowena step in, trapping the beast's movement with unnerving coordination, and Rowena snaps when he treats her like disposable bait, which is adorable, really, because Veloci just smirks like he owns the battlefield, and says he's not moving. He was talking about holding the monster still. So Rowena finally commits to the kill. The stone brute starts cracking apart under the barrage, chunks flying like cheap excuses, and even this Goliath, for all its swagger, is finally getting exposed as breakable. The blast turns the floor into flying rubble, and the room instantly panics, because that ridiculous opening move leaves everyone staring like they swallowed broken grammar. Then the monster's body keeps collapsing under the pressure, which is almost insulting, since even the professors admit that kind of control burns absurd amounts of mana, and that's when Fernand gets announced as first place, naturally, because of course he does. So the crowd starts whining about second place again, as if the humiliation hurts, while Veloci quietly celebrates earning brownie points with Luina, smooth as ever, except Luina looks anything but pleased, which is probably the most honest reaction here, and when she praises him, Veloci acts confused, like he forgot being obnoxious was a hobby. Then he claims first place thanks to her, and somehow makes her glare harder. In the Academy Hall, Ruina's pout gets instantly weaponized by Veloci's smug teasing, and she swears the monster fight was just her very first awkward warm-up, while he, of course, acts offended that the fun ended so quickly, then starts calculating second place by seconds, because humiliation apparently has margins, but he still brags that first place sits in his pocket, alongside household dummies, which makes Rowena practically glitter as she dangles a tempting offer, suspiciously sweet, only for him to reject it, claiming that would be asking far too much, while her grin turns polite again, since apparently they never even use it, and just as he heads to class, she casually calls him Fernan, then immediately follows with the real ambush. Buy me coffee, obviously. Veloci cuts Arya down cold, acting above her complaints and family drama, then sidesteps the accusation with that smug, businesslike swagger of his, because yes, this clown did get the Freudian message, obviously, and he even realizes she means the item transport, not romance, where Arya pitches the world tree branch like a priceless miracle, and he listens, while Rowena leans in, admitting his heir status makes the burden different, so she frames the branch as absurdly valuable, because of course it is, and Veloci mentally prices the sapling, its mana, and the entire forest, then decides the Freudian family must be hiding a very profitable secret, which leaves Arya stuck helping anyway, because he still won't tell her anything. Arya tries the whole friendship routine, and Veloci instantly smells trouble. Then he swats down her optimism, reminding her houses aren't supposed to cozy up, while she circles back to the real issue, his skiplate's plan already approved, and he coolly asks the departure date, like this is a normal business trip, because apparently even iced tea gets audited when Veloci is involved. So the Freudian estate becomes his next target, and that crimson power starts twitching. As the pressure spikes, the room erupts into chaos and nobody looks impressed, since Veloci keeps treating disaster like a mild scheduling inconvenience. Then the estate lies in ruins, with everyone realizing Andromalius already descended, and Veloci, of course, acts like he saw this apocalypse on paper first. Ain't freezes at the scarlet sky, because something just went horribly right. Then demonic energy tears in, and the World Tree branch becomes the punchline. Veloci casually calls it summoning fuel, as if apocalypse is inventory. The explanation gets uglier, since the branch was already corrupted by demons. Someone points to the Golden Turtle Guild, and the blame starts circling. Gardner drags up the yacht mess, then adds Pellenberg to the scandal list. That suspicion lands hard, because everyone knows this whole case stinks, and suddenly the blonde knight is swearing hell never forgive Pellenberg. Then the denial comes crashing down, with no one buying demon alliances. Ain't finally gets grabbed mid-warning, and the room freezes. As Fernand leans in, caught between concern and disaster, the noble realizes the name hit wrong, because this isn't Fernand, but Veloci, wearing that smug face like he owns the problem. Then the whole curse branch business spills out again, and everyone panics, while Veloci treats demonic corruption like a supply issue. Gardner snaps about the Golden Turtle Guild and the yacht scandal, but Veloci shuts it down cold, refusing the blame circus. And that leaves everyone staring as the Duke's decision hangs over them. The Academy and Freudian estate both hide behind strict security, so even a tainted sphere gets blamed on transport problems, while Veloci coolly weighs a World Tree branch against Armadolius' descent, because the risk is ugly, but the result stays unchanged, and everyone agrees to drop it, losses included. Before panic spreads, since rumors would brand the whole family demon-touched anyway, which is adorable, so Veloci orders Hyde to fetch the demon sphere immediately, and the estate looms under moonlight, waiting for the inevitable spectacle, where the sealed orb finally screams, proving containment was always a joke. Even the professor's face says it now. This sealed mess is demon-grade, and the guild had already buried infiltrators in that yacht club fiasco. How charming. Veloci then drops the bomb that one was captured alive, tucked below the academy, so naturally everyone asks if that proof is real. Because subtlety died years ago, the answer lands colder. Demons were inside the merchant guild too, and nobody reported it, which makes the delayed confession look absurdly convenient. Like panic only matters when caught. Veloci still says he held back for more proof, but the crisis won't wait, because that proof now points straight at the Pellenbergs, and the family optics are rotten. Then the demon sphere goes feral, and the smug face in front of it isn't smug anymore. At the Academy mansion, Veloci calmly admits the yacht disaster was demon work, and says the World Tree branch could still spark another misunderstanding. Conveniently, while the suspicion grows uglier, he reminds them demons target his house, then brushes off the coincidence theory, because he already smelled a trap, and the old feud with the Pellenbergs makes his logic annoyingly believable, since demons attacked Ain't at the yacht club meeting, not by chance. So the investigators realize Ain't fits better, and Veloci isn't bluffing, because the war's early days favored demons, until Pellenberg money shifted everything. Now the monsters look wary, as if cash itself became their nightmare, and Veloci seals it by saying war and money both teach brutal lessons. Fernand Pellenberg twists the room, blaming the Pellenbergs and their filthy little scheme, and his glare makes it clear Ain't was meant to doubt him, not rescue him. He calls the whole setup deliberate, because demons hate House Pellenberg, apparently, and that Noble from the prophecy side looks suddenly less smug, more cornered. Then the buried truth snaps open. The yacht job was never random, just bait, and Ain't was dragged to the deserted island because someone needed him suspicious, with Luina Burchef and Bella Hohen dragged into the mess as inconvenient witnesses, while the sea serpent reveal proves this wasn't ordinary chaos, but imperial inheritance, meaning Ain't used the founding emperor's gift and erased the monster instead, so the plot backfires beautifully, and the conspirators get the stupidity they earned. The World Tree bargain lands fast, and Veloci sounds annoyingly certain, because Arya dragged Fernand Pellenberg into this mess recently. And now the delivery pressure turns lethal, with Ain't Armin framed as the sharp blade while Fernand gets the payoff, and Veloci, smug as ever, decides the job should be ruined before it can breathe, which is hilarious, because the so-called transport problem was already looking doomed, thanks to a rude little request that backfired into a weak early ambush, and Aria's letter accidentally proved he wanted out. Not drama, not heroics, yet the adults act shocked that refusing a favor was the sane reaction, until suspicion snaps toward demons. And the noble logic finally stops pretending, because if demons are involved, then yes, the answer is probably damning. Even now, he measures their influence, while the room stays breathless and cornered, because wealth and elector blood still can't stop the whole machine from stalling, and that helpless frustration starts chewing at him, which is almost embarrassing, so Veloci just leans in, cool as prophet, while the demon evidence keeps screaming, with Ain't boxed into the problem, and Fernan ready to smash through it head-on, because in this family circus, solve it means kick the door off its hinges, while the business-minded noble pretends chaos is just another negotiable expense, and the onlookers only catch the part where he looks shaken, not broken, as the floor caves in behind the smugness, making the accusation finally land. Then, 6 days later, the transport convoy rolls out exactly as planned. At the front of the convoy, Fernand Pellenberg looks like trouble dressed as nobility, while the World Tree branch rides hidden in the fourth carriage, absurdly overprotected, because only the highest figures know this shipment exists, and that secrecy reeks of panic. Fernand coolly claims only Arya can open it, then wonders who exposed demon energy, which is rich, since the obvious suspect is Arya, the prophecy girl everyone keeps side-eyeing, but ain't supposedly her destined friend. So naturally he gets dragged into this mess too, and when Ain't asks the travel time, Fernand casually drops a month, then adds the route. 2 fiefs east, then a ship. Like this is a grocery run. Ain't immediately tries to invite him into yacht club nonsense, and gets shut down, because Fernand cares more about grades, rank, and why the elector houses hate him. Since you're new, Veloci opens with that smug little pity routine, then Arya snaps back, furious that he handled the Golden Bull deal, while the Academy's grand estate looms above the whole messy business, because the real joke is demons were already being tracked through Jace, naturally, and now the adults finally admit they'll need outside help to clean house, with Fernan demanding updates on his arrival like time itself owes money, only to realize the demon trap is already closing, and he's late, because every preparation he made gets mocked by the enemy's timing, while the family patriarch freaks out over losing his heir and only son, so the whole room spirals into panic, orders, and desperate firebranded nonsense. The servant relays the young master's quiet orders, because secrecy matters, and apparently he already knew the demon's playbook, which is adorable, so Veloci treats the warning like a ledger entry. Useful but inconvenient, while everyone else panics over ruined plans, the professor changing, and Fernand's advantage. Jace stays dryly suspicious, promising questions later, like that'll fix anything. Then the talk swings into mercenaries, because subtlety died a noble death, but the retainer still insists the young master will handle this, somehow, as Fernand's title gets announced in the rain, all cold confidence and menace, with proof he keeps outpacing expectations, right before the weather turns suspicious, and that smug stare says he already knew how this ends. Thunder cracks over the road, and everyone freezes, trusting him anyway. The journey gets cancelled, so camp becomes the night's painfully obvious answer, while Veloci calls the rain suspicious, like weather owes him money, and Ain't politely suggests the skies are rigged, because of course they are. Veloci agrees. Just maybe. Someone is screwing with them from above, then shrugs at the obvious demon angle, because subtlety died first. The prophecy suddenly matters, promising the Academy should been safe, except the rain keeps cackling, and the infiltration theory writes itself. Then lightning erupts on the carriage, turning bad weather into a murder alert, and the wreckage confirms somebody just made the world's worst entrance. The carriage is already splitting apart, and gravity looks downright vindictive here, while Veloci takes the hit like weather finally paid his bill, his red magic flaring against the impact, because dying quietly would be amateurish, and the whole roof caves into chaos, confirming this was no ordinary accident. Below, the servants and students stare at the wreckage, instantly outclassed by disaster, as Ain't realizes the sudden drop is exactly what a World Tree ambush feels like. Then Arya's voice cuts through the panic, demanding the carriage stay intact, which is adorable, because even the others can barely keep up, while debris and bodies keep tumbling. The darkness swallows everything, and Ain't clocks the fall as roughly 40 meters, so naturally he blames the demons, because of course they had to make it theatrical. The World Tree carriage drops into disaster, but Veloci calls it manageable. Naturally, Jace demands a plan, and Veloci answers with that usual infuriating calm. Red sigils flare against the darkness, because subtlety would be for amateurs. Below, the panic deepens as the fall turns the whole situation theatrical. Veloci shrugs off the chaos, acting like this was somehow too easy. Then the counterattack slams in, and the pretty collapse gets uglier fast. Veloci gets asked what the monster is, and he labels it annoyingly obvious. The real problem is that Jace keeps missing the Academy's most basic demon trivia. Even Veloci snaps back that yes, he knows. And no, this is not reassuring. Because these things aren't ordinary monsters. They're demonic creatures wearing horror like perfume. Monsters have always haunted this continent, but demons made them worse. Because these disasters don't just kill, they recruit and burn nations. Demonic creatures ooze that cursed energy, unlike plain beasts. And that's the catch. So when someone asks how demons exist now, the answer is obvious. Veloci already knows, of course, and says demons sent this mess. While Ain't looks horrified, realizing this isn't some academic trivia joke, then Veloci orders the carriages moved, acting like chaos is housekeeping, and Ain't panics, admitting he can't handle it because of that guy, which leaves everyone staring at Veloci, the smug monster expert, as pressure spikes, because whatever power followed him here is the real reason nobody laughs now. Veloci's stare lands like a threat, and the room feels priced already. A demon lunges into view, but even that reveal looks embarrassed. The possession pressure hits harder, yet Veloci barely flinches at all. The cursed beast surges forward, announcing itself like a disaster with teeth. Its explosive power tears the scene apart, pretty much on command. Arya and Ain't freeze beside the chaos, clutching panic like royalty. Gardner steps in, sword ready, because someone has to act sane. The textbook answer finally drops, and Veloci gets smugly vindicated. Demons are explained as metal-hard monsters, which is rude and useful. Their claws outclass swords, so this lesson just got expensive, and now the horror gets explained. Teeth, jaws, and absolute overkill, because this fourth-rank demon can crush trolls and ogres like snacks, and apparently the World Tree Branch attracted a whole barbarian fleet, thanks genius, while Veloci smirks through it all, casually pricing apocalypse like inventory. Gardner takes command, ready to buy time. Since somebody here owns competence, then the room cracks open and the floor drops out. Literally, on cue, Arya panics over the missing target, while the commander orders her to guard, as the beast looms red-eyed, and even she realizes this is bad. So the group scrambles for a plan, with James suddenly becoming the emergency contact, and the monster answers by lunging anyway, because subtlety died first. Veloci shreds the first attack with a crimson blast. Because subtlety is for amateurs, then the spell web surges wider, turning the whole hall into his personal threat display, and the target eats the impact hard, while Veloci's power keeps looking embarrassingly clean. Rowena loses her cool in spectacular fashion, proving elegance vanishes once reality bites, because the armored giant everyone mocked is a golem. And yes, Veloci really bought that too. The thing now stands over the crater, like a tax receipt from hell. While bystanders finally admit a second year controlling this mess is absurdly hard, yet Veloci just keeps glowing, calmly looking stronger than he has any right to, as the demonic menace lunges in the dark, completely mistiming its big entrance, and the final slash tears through the chaos, leaving arrogance and panic equally wrecked. The purple curse finally lands, and the monster's smug body buckles under impact, cratering the battlefield like its confidence got audited and failed, while Ain't stands with Gardner, staring down a nightmare nobody planned for, because even his profanity comes out tired, like the universe owes him rest. Then the beast towers overhead, and everyone realizes this thing is not ordinary. Veloci answers with red sigil light, making demon trouble look embarrassingly commercial. The blow rips through the darkness, and even the witnesses breathe. More than one golem, Rowena's polished composure cracks, because surprise always finds nobles at the worst time. As the red haze surges back, the demon's timing stays hilariously awful, and the final strike cuts through panic, leaving the whole room wrecked. Ain't's face freezes as the dark presence finally registers, and the joke dies. Then the World Tree name lands, because apparently the nightmare has branding. Veloci carves through the panic with green sigil force, cutting the arrogance clean. Even the demon's crowd of red-black noise starts looking embarrassingly helpless. The pressure keeps climbing, and the poor caster suddenly remembers he has limits. Veloci gets dragged deeper into the mess, still complaining like this is unpaid labor. The strain spikes again, and now he's outright admitting the technique is nasty. Yet he keeps forcing it through, because quitting would be far less profitable. Then he turns the rescue into debt collection, making Fernan sound like a creditor. And just to top it off, he calls repayment more than gratitude. The strange soul keeps barking from the void, because subtlety clearly died first, while Veloci exposes the ugly truth of golem control, smugly calling it a fatal weakness, and that weakness gets punished hard as his own construct becomes a battered liability. Yet he still keeps slashing through the demon pressure, acting annoyed at unpaid labor, because a golem stands right in a monster's face and still eats the punishment. Veloci then admits the real problem is not talent, but how hard control gets, and that confession comes with a pathetic little curse as the strain keeps climbing, before he realizes this is only the third round. So yes, the demon is getting bullied, which would be funny if not for the brutal focus needed just to keep the mining tools alive, but he refuses to die here. Flooding the circle with power and profit-driven spite, Veloci is down to 2 golems, and that's the panic budget, apparently, so he just needs to survive, until Hyde crawls back into the mess. The armored construct keeps soaking hits, because unpaid labor never quits. While the demon hammers forward and makes toughness look embarrassingly expensive, Veloci decides a sword would just slow him down, shockingly enough, and instead locks every sense onto the golem like a man auditing damage. That lets him feel the construct as if it were his own body. Then he drags its motion through the demon's pressure, with ugly precision, until the whole battlefield tightens around one desperate, profit-fueled gamble, and the next strike lands like a full accounting of violence. The chamber is buckling fast, and Veloci keeps the panic nicely overpriced, while the demon smashes into his borrowed golem, like labor taxes reborn, so he discards swordplay, and sinks himself to the construct instead, dragging its battered body through pressure, turning pain into clean leverage. Then the monster takes a brutal hit, and suddenly remembers consequences, but it still lunges. Because shame never stops a feral demon, as Veloci keeps chaining blows, calmly asking whether that thing is still standing, and the battlefield answers with another collapse, trying embarrassingly hard to survive. Then Hyde finally gets called, the last excuse standing behind the wreckage, while Veloci keeps buying time, squeezing profit from chaos one hit at a time. The possession noise peaks again, and the red-haired spirit finally panics hard, while Veloci keeps the pressure on, carving through black, cursed mass like tax season. That smug face in the void keeps smirking, until the strike lands squarely, and the demon's jaw caves in. Proving confidence means nothing against good timing. The body is still ugly, still stubborn, still pretending it can keep up, but Veloci answers with another crushing blow, because mercy clearly got priced out. Then the corrupted shell buckles, leaving only twitching remnants and bad decisions. Even the demonic pressure starts collapsing, as if it suddenly discovered shame, and Veloci, absurdly calm, announces one last hit like he's closing a sale, because Hyde still needs time, and Veloci intends to build chaos for it. That smug demon body keeps talking with its face, until Veloci crushes it mid-gloat, and the jaw caves in instantly, because arrogance has terrible timing, especially here, with 4 pricey golems already gone. The whole deal starts looking humiliating, yet Veloci still had the nerve to promise more time, like chaos was negotiable. Then the monster's chopped head looks wrong, which is apparently the understatement of the year, as the corrupted mass shudders apart, leaking shame, blood, and business losses. Gardner and the servant catch the explosion's edge, calling out to the young master, while the blast tears through the dark, forcing everyone to stop pretending this is fine. Veloci and Ain't stay upright inside the smoke, thanks to a clutch shield, and the final complaint lands same explosion again, because this disaster loves repetition. Evidence vanished, but Veloci still kept a recording, smug as ever. Then he handed over protection and corpse samples, because subtlety is dead. The rare 4th-rank monster was basically inventory now, supposedly useful. Even the World Tree branch gets mentioned, like disaster needs a sales pitch. Fernan's name rings out, and the Mother Tree survives, miracle included. The chest is cracked, though magically guarded, so nobody gets to panic yet. Everything else got wrecked by the blast, but the tree lives, naturally. Veloci still wants to inspect it, because trust issues are cheaper. Demonic taint hides from naked eyes, so he ordered this artifact, of course. And yes, it was absurdly expensive, because royalties love extortion. Veloci opens the expensive relic like a smug merchant, already suspicious, and checks the World Tree branch for taint, because apparently miracles need audits. Then he spots the residue and smirks at fate's sloppy little surprise, while the chest crackles with power, proving the disaster still has receipts. The hidden soul panics, realizing this inventory survived every cheap corruption trick, and Veloci starts snapping the relic apart, calm as ever, because failure rates are for amateurs. Rowena watches him manhandle the thing, horrified, as his solutions get dangerously practical. Then he explains the tree can still be saved if someone amputates the rot, which has Rowena instantly protesting, because touching sacred treasure like that is peak madness, and Veloci finally orders Hyde over, treating an apocalypse like a staffing issue. There, Veloci digs up the residue, grinning at fate's sloppy little trap. Then he points at the cracked chest, acting insulted by its terrible hiding skills. Rowena immediately worries the transport story is becoming painfully obvious, and he loves that. Veloci doubles down, saying the demons being active is exactly why silence matters. Rowena keeps pushing for truth, while Veloci treats exposure like a public relations disaster. The lecture turns absurdly practical, with Veloci arguing the hunt for demons is the real issue. Rowena finally catches on, realizing Veloci wants the whole incident buried for strategy. Then Veloci smirks and offers alliance, because apparently blackmail now counts as networking. Rowena hesitates, realizing this secret could entangle another elector house, which is peak trouble. Veloci seals it with cheerful nonsense, asking if that means they'll be close now. Arya demands a token, and Veloci treats the whole exchange like a business deal, then shrugs at her panic, because leaking this incident would get ugly fast, so he seals the alliance by offering protection, and she accepts the blackmail with a grin, while Ain't gets dragged in, pretending nothing happened, which is hilariously unconvincing, because the cleanup was absurdly thorough, from replaced supplies to miracle medicine, and by the time the Merchant Guild reached the academy, even the damage looked suspiciously neat, meaning nobody could credibly accuse them of demon collaboration. How tragic for the gossip addicts, except the real cost was brutal, since the World Tree branch paid for that success, and that obscene price leaves one furious knight screaming for demon blood, while a red-haired authority figure quietly judges the next failure, disappointed already. Inside the library shadows, Veloci keeps pressing for the World Tree branch location, and the intruder admits the corruption plan already collapsed, spectacularly useless, leaving the dark spirit stammering apologies while its confidence evaporates, as Veloci leans in, coolly mocking that pathetic surrender. Then he recalls Fernand Pellenberg's survival, which already screamed preparation because the demon had 5 golems, and somehow still looked shocked, so Veloci smirks, wondering if that meant cowardice or competence. Either way, the intruder insists he simply overprepared, not brilliant, and Veloci nails the final verdict. Failed attempt, because caution beat chaos, before the spirit thanks him and gets crushed by merciless red judgment. Fernand Pellenberg's name hangs there, and the trap is finally exposed, but Veloci notes Ain't Armin is the real obstacle, inconveniently breathing, while that overconfident soul claims it only wanted him dead. Pathetic. Yet the demon itself gets pinned under Veloci's red judgment, suddenly small. Then the scene snaps back home, where everyone welcomes the returning troublemaker, and Veloci, dripping smugness, hears the visitor's business before pretending to care. Ain't mentions crossing paths with demonic creatures, which is adorable panic, because Veloci flatly explains demons are no longer hiding. How quaint. Then he threatens repair fees like a merchant prince, with zero mercy, and the poor fool happily agrees, smiling straight into the invoice. The crisis was handled, but tainted by demonic energy, so Veloci decides the artifact should be purified, not wasted, and Ain't learns it came from a cut World Tree branch, apparently exotic trash, which means the demon hunt was really Fridion's family problem. How charming. While Veloci asks if he can do it, already grinning like it's easy money, then proves holy light works, making Bella's case look embarrassingly manageable, except he refuses the same method, because subtlety is clearly for amateurs, and when the purification runs too hot, even Veloci admits the branch is burning away, so he shifts tactics, demanding a different method than holy lightning, casually, and settles on holy water, because apparently one bottle is never enough. In a gilded parlor, Jace hesitates while Veloci prices holy water like luxury stock, then shrugs off the gamble, admitting purity experiments are basically expensive guesswork. Jace presses harder, suspicious of spending money with zero certainty, and Veloci keeps that smug, red-haired confidence, insisting trust is fine while he pretends the order's reputation matters. Now the holy water test lands on the table, a tiny red swirl in an ornate cup, and Veloci immediately warns the branch could burn the order's image to ash. Jace flinches as Veloci counters with cold logic, saying mage mouths should only chase truth, because if the method fails, the blame sticks to him, not the sacred brand. That cornered confidence finally cracks the facade, and the redhead starts sounding worried, but Veloci is already locked in. Right as the cleanup bill gets even uglier, Veloci starts by forcing Jace to swallow his pride, smug as ever, then pivots into holy water logistics, because apparently demon work needs budgeting. Jace tries to narrow the deal, but Veloci corners him with brutal practicality, since a failed test would make the order look stupid, not him. That's when the redhead hits a wall and finally stops pretending this is easy. Veloci keeps pushing, calling up a corpse of a 4th-rank demon, and suddenly the holy water joke becomes a field report from hell. Jace almost chokes on the price tag, realizing this mess wants payment, while Veloci calmly explains demons this rare should not even exist. So now Jace has to pay up, and Veloci wants more than water. Veloci starts by pitching a priceless chance, because subtlety is for amateurs, and when Jace balks, he hammers the point by waiving the payment anyway, then casually threatens to hand it to someone else, which is adorable, honestly, until Jace panics and commits, realizing holy water is suddenly pocket change, but the red-haired negotiator keeps the knife twisting, asking about demon motives, while Jace, now trapped, starts admitting the tree's mana might be absurdly useful, and Veloci escalates with the worst theory possible, that demons wanted a vessel, which snaps the room awake, because the World Tree secret was never supposed to leak, so Jace finally asks whether the whole mess should be investigated further, and Veloci coolly warns that bringing Order forces in could spark Academy politics. Most of the Academy's insiders knew better, so nobody wanted reckless moves, because the Pope is panicking over demons crawling into the Empire's best school, and the black-haired student refuses to sit idle, guarding the World Tree branch, while warning that if the summoning continues, corruption will spread everywhere. Then the smug shadow drops the bad news. The traitors are already coming, and the finals crowd starts comparing results, as if this disaster needs homework, with one rival whining about study guides, while the other calls him lazy, but the black-haired brat still brags about precious senior treasures like inventory, only to admit he's annoyed by partner rankings, because he helped lose first place, so now the whole Academy watches him seethe, while Veloci casually promises victory. The forest meeting opens with the mistress arriving, heels ticking through everyone's nerves. Then Luina starts laying out finals rules with that smug, polished Academy confidence, because the whole exam gets sliced into 4 teams, and the best pair hunters win, while she hands Team 3 its assignment, plus that charming reminder to memorize faces, and when nobody volunteers, she practically smirks at the silence like it paid rent, so she mocks the timid crowd, dragging Luina into the spotlight as the obvious choice, but Veloci instantly refuses, claiming he'd rather collect the blame than the credit. Then he twists the knife by saying Luina should lead, and even suggests a vote, which leaves the students counting under pressure, already realizing this fair game is rigged, and ain't just stares as the whole forest turns into a social massacre. Team 3 gets Fernan Pellenberg, and the room instantly starts simmering, because everyone just voted for him. So the popular joke lands hard. While Ain't's face says he knows this is getting uglier by the second, then the crowd piles on with fake confidence, practically worshipping the golden boy, and the rest of them start prodding the reluctant genius for leadership, because apparently merchant experience makes him the safest scapegoat, but Fernan dodges the spotlight and shoves Luina toward the center instead, so she beams like an overexcited fan and hypes him beyond reason, leaving him cornered, sighing, and deciding hell just win anyway, since that's obviously how he plans to make Luina like him more. Fernan caves to the noise, grinning like this whole mess is beneath him, while the others admit his team's leader got picked by sheer vote, not mercy. Then the long-haired observer needles the room, sounding amused that nobody's seen this coming, as the red-haired reviewer smugly crowns Ludger the safest bet, because Prince Privilege apparently counts as strategy. That same logic spreads to Gardner, whose battlefield pedigree makes him look annoyingly perfect, and the map on the table basically says the rest will dogpile his team anyway. But the red-haired noble keeps slicing the board differently, dragging Fernan and Luina into the spotlight, while the blonde prince gets praised as the exam's biggest advantage, which is rich, since the real fight now looks like a 4-way brawl, not a neat little ranking test, and the only unresolved joke left is how Luina and Fernan ended up paired. The red-bearded professor shrugs off the gossip, noting the families only got suspiciously close, while the room hisses back that the Pellenbergs and Bircheffs are no ordinary nobodies, because those houses once flirted with disaster, then clawed toward relevance like it owed them money, which means change is possible, apparently, across all 7 elector houses, and the smug professor refuses to worry, even as the long-haired noblewoman needles him about it, forcing the whole conversation to circle Professor Rosalita Weinberg, as if status alone solves politics, but she casually dodges the family feud nonsense, because she clearly has better things to do, until the argument snaps awake and the crowd realizes the teams have finally started moving, with the map confirming everyone's favorite strategy, pile onto Team 1 and hope it works, as the patrols warn the others are converging, turning this exam into a full-blown hunt. Fernan's smug little mastermind act is already poisoning the forest, because Team 3 is outnumbered, and apparently math now counts as warfare, while Fernan pretends this was always the plan. Since subtlety would embarrass him, the others point out his old first-place crown, like that excuses everything else. Then the mood turns feral, with one ally practically thrilled to stab him first, and Team 4 immediately sells its soul the moment alliances start sounding expensive, because once Team 3 falls, the whole bargain chain snaps apart, clean and ugly. So Fernan orders the hit on Team 4 first, then the rest of the betrayal, calling it strategy, when it's really just preemptive treachery with better tailoring, and everyone agrees they'll betray each other anyway. So why wait? The forest chatter starts with Fernand's betrayal, and yeah, everyone saw it coming, because the blonde genius claims he outran suspicion and got there first, while the hidden scouts confirm Team 2 is already collapsing toward Team 1, and the strongest stragglers from Team 2 are also marching in. How noble, as the black-haired planner shrugs off the outrage and dumps the others back at base, calling it a simple split, while he sends both Teams 2 and 4 after Team 1, which leaves the long-haired partners stunned. Since alliance talks apparently became betrayal theater, but the so-called weak link still likes the plan, just not the target order, because if the base guards are pathetic, then 2 saboteurs should be enough, and Fernand still acts offended. Like treachery only becomes respectable when he does it. The forest showdown starts with one ally asking if loyalty even matters, and the other backing Fernand's command, because apparently first place excuses anything, while Ain't calls out the exam's cowardly tactics and gets mocked by priorities. Then Fernand shrugs, treating honor like a joke and survival like a spreadsheet, and the blonde rival spirals into full pride meltdown, furious at looking weak, until Ain't, reading the ambush, warns his clearly struggling, though he denies it, while Fernand keeps calmly insulting him, admitting he'd choose the same ruthless path, and Luina gets lectured that honor will only make her a laughingstock here, as she realizes Teams 2 and 4 already sold them out, plus Ludger's involvement, leaving everyone staring at betrayal theater, where Fernand still acts offended by treachery. He knows Fernand too well, which already smells like a trap, because Team 4 is the obvious sacrificial bait in this little scheme, and the strongest piece gets sent out to steal the flag, while Almond quietly realizes Ludger is already the missing headache, meaning the real target was him from the start, not some random victim. So Team 4 gets ordered to the standby point like obedient paperwork, and Almond finally calls out the betrayal, pretending this was ever honorable. Then Luina arrives, looking shocked that Fernand sold the alliance, not that he would, and she realizes his true target was Almond, with Ludger tangled in it. So much for teamwork, because this is just betrayal wearing Academy colors. Fernand smugly warns that one failure drags the prince down too, and Almond fires back, barely amused by the nonsense, while the aristocrat insists fights are chaos, so prediction is for suckers, which is rich, considering his hand is already on the hilt, because the blades and sigils finally collide in a brutal blue-red flash, as Almond gets hammered by the exchange and still refuses to fold. Then Fernand keeps that nasty little smile, acting like this was strategy, while the ambushers and Beast close in, turning teamwork into a circus, and the blow lands hard enough to make the forest feel the insult, with Ruina arriving just in time to realize Fernand sold everyone out. The ambush detonates in the forest, and the kill box looks beautifully stupid, because the Beast and Blade both slam in. Then Ain't still holds the line, while the clash chews through steel and pride, and nobody gets a clean win. Almond eats the impact head-on, which is somehow still not enough to break him. Then Arya dives through the mess, disgusted by how badly this plan aged, and even she realizes the trap could have gone catastrophic in one heartbeat. Veloci keeps that terrifying calm, grinning like this disaster was premium strategy, as the strike caves in with red-hot force, leaving the field looking mugged. Ruina finally arrives to witness the betrayal, and the timing is embarrassingly tragic, while Almond stares him down, daring the smug bastard to keep going. In the forest haze, the smug duelist starts by mocking Almond's exhaustion, then lectures him about fairness and honor, like cheating needed a poetry award. But Almond refuses the bait, calling out that so-called honor without strength is just theater, and Velocious Grin says he knows exactly how ugly this ending should be, because he openly admits winning matters less than surviving the fight, which is maddeningly practical. Almond still answers like a knight, insisting that respect means nothing if he folds now. Then the pressure spikes, as Veloci reminds him battles are never predictable, and the retaliation lands like a brutal lesson, wrecking the ground and Almond's breathing. As dust explodes everywhere, the whole ambush suddenly looks a lot less clever, and even Veloci realizes too late that nobody sensed the hidden presence at all. He calls the trap early, calling out Fernand's smug setup. Then Fernand just smiles, because of course he planned the humiliation, and even Luina gets dragged in, proving nobody here is actually safe. As Fernand boasts he watched the guard drop and picked off Ludger too, the others decide Armand is disposable, which is adorable coming from nobles, while Luina suddenly flips from pride to compromise, like survival has standards, because Fernand treats war like business, and victory like the only morality. Elsewhere, Team 1 keeps crawling through the woods, blissfully missing the massacre, until the alarm screams that Team 3 vanished, and the base explanation gets suspicious. Then Ludger wonders where Fernand went, which is always a dangerous question. Fernand's trap is already biting, and Almond's name becomes the headline, while the prince's failure spreads panic, because embarrassment travels faster than rumors. Then the blue-haired defender swears hell stop Fernan, which is noble and hilarious, as Team 1 barrels in behind him, wearing the aura of a very loud funeral, and the retaliation starts with Almond's side branding them for losing the flag. But the real twist is obvious now. Fernan and Luina carve through both teams, leaving everyone arguing over numbers, while the blue-haired captain realizes he's outmatched, with the survivors begging to sort the situation first, which is adorable in a death trap, until the forest confirms Team 3 was waiting there all along, smiling in the dark, and just like that, the whole squad understands they are completely surrounded. Fernan's smug face fills the scene, because subtlety clearly died today. The forest path turns accusatory, and Almond gets baited over his stolen flag. Gardner storms in behind him, furious, while Fernan keeps acting innocent. Ain't calls out the crooked tactics, and Fernan mock laments being misunderstood. Then he jabs at Luina, reminding everyone he outplayed the exam too, naturally. A challenge to a magic duel lands, and Fernan treats it like business. Gardner rejects it outright, because merchants apparently don't qualify as proper mages. Fernan shrugs off the ego, insisting efficiency beats some dramatic one-on-one fantasy. Ain't realizes that smile means trouble, right as danger gathers off-screen. Then the ambush slams in, proving Fernan never came to fight fair. The battle was vicious, and Team 3 surged ahead like smug prodigies, but the lead vanished fast when Team 2 crashed in, dragging stalemate with it, because both sides kept losing teammates, and nobody got the glory they wanted, while the red-haired official dryly admitted the slowdown meant zero progress. So Fernan calmly rewrote the rules, grinning like profits had already been counted, and Luina, naturally, backed him while the others stared at the nerve of it. Then he slashed the exam field smaller, practically herding everyone toward Team 2's base, and the black-haired boy instantly saw the trap, calling out how unfair it was, because shrinking the map and stealing carriers would kneecap Team 3, which is exactly the kind of dirty efficiency Fernan loves to sell. The battlefield's been squeezed dry, so Fernan assigns Gert the flag, and retreats. Then he hands over a defense artifact, casually treating panic like inventory control. The silver-haired boy immediately gawks at the value, because apparently money talks louder. Fernan shrugs off the greed, insisting victory matters more than collectors' regret, because he sells the logic as an investment. While Ain't watches the scam with side-eye, Fernan keeps smiling, claiming the leader's job is simple, just drag the team. Meanwhile, Luina's adoration skyrockets, and even Ain't starts calling him a surprisingly nice cheapskate. The misunderstanding gets hilarious, until Fernan and his allies finally move out. Then the waiting trio steps into view, blades ready, like they own the woods. And right on cue, the ambush snaps shut, because they've been expecting Fernan. Fernan grins in the trees, already treating this trap like a paid lesson. Ain't bites back with disbelief, while Fernan casually dismisses the old score. The blue-haired menace keeps provoking him, but Fernan refuses to look rattled. Then the rank obsession gets exposed, and everyone realizes the guy is insufferable, except his smug little performance somehow sells, making the noble onlookers second guess. So Fernan unveils the real flex, a team spell no one saw coming. The squad channels into one brutal burst, and the forest lights up like fraud. That explosion finally makes the ambushers panic, because Fernan brought artillery. Ain't clocks the danger fast, realizing this idiot is gambling everything on one strike. And Fernan, still smiling, leaves the professors to worry about cleanup. Luina gets the order to stop them, while Fernan calmly sets the pace, because team magic needs ugly calculations, and he's already doing the math. Then the whole formation detonates, and Luina refuses to let anyone through, while Gardner whines that she can't slip past. As if that's clever, the ambushers finally charge, screaming for the team to get crushed, but Fernan says the spell is already done, which is spectacularly bad news. Even he admits the artifact timing was tighter than expected, annoying for once, yet he counters with his own artifact, because of course he packed one, and the sky turns into a blue sigil storm as his burst lands. Then Fernan stands there like a menace, ordering everyone to back off. Fernan detonates the field with red sigils, and the ambush gets deleted, as some blue-haired idiot keeps barking for his death, and loses the argument instantly. Below ground, the team barely survives the collapse, which is impressive for everyone involved, with one survivor smugly crediting the artifacts, because apparently luck now has sponsors. Then the cave joke lands. They fell through the floor, not some grand escape plan, so the pair checks on the others, because that's what competent people do. Annoyingly, Fernan spots movement behind them, and the tension spikes for the unlucky lurkers. A hidden seal starts buzzing in his palm, looking way too important to ignore, and everyone freezes at the sight of that crest, because yep, that is trouble. since House Armin's mark is back. And the prophecy nonsense just got loud. Deep underground, the seal glows, and the black-haired noble goes still, while the ponytailed girl realizes House Armin left something important behind, and the dark-haired boy grumbles that Ain't is always late to miracles, though Luina smugly decides the loot should stay with her now, because anyone else would have robbed it. But Fernan hides it first, then the exam still refuses to end, even after the collapse, as blue-haired confidence sweeps in, bragging first place like a clown, until Fernan's name lands, and that smug grin finally cracks, with the blue-haired intruder frozen, while Fernan orders Luina to end him, and the others complain they nearly died, proving Team 3 still won. The semester rankings finally drop, and the whole academy leans in. Then Luina snatches first place, because apparently she enjoys public humiliation. Fernan hears the chatter, while the black-haired boy keeps the panic tasteful. Congratulations fly his way, and Luina plays gracious like she owns the ceiling. Fernan still looks unimpressed, admitting the result needed outside help. The others insist he still earned it, which is adorable coming from witnesses. Luina grows uneasy, confessing she may be dragging him into extra trouble. Fernan casually brushes it off, because burdening him was never the problem. She huffs at his square personality, then immediately retracts the complaint, so the academy celebrates first place, while Fernan stays annoyingly calm. Fernan shrugs off the concern, treating burden like trivial bookkeeping, while Luina freezes in silence, already sensing how dangerous this gets. Then she credits him for first place, and he barely flexes, because her praise is nice, but his patience is still the real luxury. Luina finally names herself, promises partnership, and the room instantly notices. Fernan answers with a casual nod, like keeping her around was obvious. Then he gets slapped by a jealous question from the blonde rival, while Fernan calmly admits first place tastes good, though not for long. The blonde knight keeps smiling, yet his complaint about unexpected variables lands weak, because the true shock is Fernan, standing there like the whole test was his. The rankings hit like a guillotine, and Ain't Armin lands second, while Fernan cashes in red sigils, smugly treating power like inventory. The prophecy crowd starts spiraling, but the mysterious blue spirit keeps gossiping, because apparently ancient ruins, inheritance, and missing sites all love drama. Ain't spots the founding emperor's lost relic, and the weird little secret matters. Even the blue spirit mocks him for forgetting this exact kind of trouble. Fernan gets credited for finding it, since thieves usually would have grabbed it, and the spirit acts shocked that the new money guy actually came clean. Then the blonde noble grumbles, trusting Fernan sounds stupid on principle, so Ain't snaps back that trust died first, and honesty died with it. Deep in the forest, Fernan reaches the exam site, acting annoyingly calm, while the blue spirit points out the inheritance is buried underground. Naturally, because apparently even sealed relics get trapped in ridiculous rabbit holes, and the spirit keeps mocking how obvious the hidden route really is. Fernan slips into the cave, already treating this like a solved business deal, then discovers someone reached the inheritance first, which is just embarrassing, except it was his own hiding spell. So yes, he did find it, and Gardner immediately stiffens, catching the strange aura clinging to the stone, because that glow is demonic energy, meaning demons found the place too. So the plan becomes simple: wipe out these creeps first. Ain't 7th rank demons, and apparently each one is night level trouble. So the spirit asks if Ain't can handle it, which is adorable. Of course he can, because Fernan already treats this like a paid service. His blade tears through the pack while the demons embarrass themselves spectacularly. Then the aftermath looks almost efficient, as if disaster came with customer support. Ain't finally gets the warning, and Fernan barks for him to move, because the hidden danger is obvious now, and the boy actually notices it. The real obstacle rises, smug enough to ruin the whole plan. A demon in a cursed bloodline coat, acting like this was his entrance. Fernan meets that reveal with pure suspicion, finally calling it what it is. Fernan's cloak hangs over the bloodbath, while that smug fiend finally gets pinned. His blade keeps carving through the chaos, making every demon look hopelessly overpriced, and the aftermath snaps into order. Like disaster itself hired customer support, Ain't catches the warning at last. So Fernan drags him back into focus, because the real threat is obvious now, and the boy finally reads it. Then the demon steps forward grinning, wearing corruption like some cheap debut costume. Gardner hears the aura, and declares this thing stronger than anything before, which is rich, considering the monster still thinks intimidation makes him untouchable, until Fernan answers by dropping him through the ground with surgical contempt. And just like that, the whole arrogant entrance collapses into a bloody punchline. Fernan tears through the breach, cloak flashing like a warning flag, and Ain't finally catches the danger. Too late to look smug, because the demon slides in grinning. All corruption and bad manners, while Gardner senses the aura, and admits this thing is absurdly strong, but the monster's confidence dies the moment Fernan closes the gap, and a single brutal strike turns that grand entrance into embarrassing spray, leaving the possessed fool convulsing under Fernan's merciless, surgical pressure. As the battlefield realizes speed alone cannot save anyone here, so Ain't breathes easier, grateful he arrived with backup for once, and Fernan stands there smugly, proving he picked the right side. Ain't's name barely lands before the battlefield answers with blood and a broken body. Then gratitude gets spat out like poison, because Fernan was apparently the only lifeline left. The demon's smug little grandstanding collapses fast as Fernan's pressure turns lethal, and even that arrogant rot admits Fernan knows far more than everybody else. The masked fiend starts confessing the last failure, bragging about a dead man's secrets, before sliding into the next target, because apparently being underestimated is a personal hobby. Gardner finally recognizes the aura, and that recognition comes with one ugly truth. Fernan already knew the trap network, the planted demons, and the money trail, so the enemy hisses that the plan was to kill him after a little entertainment. But Fernan just coolly flips it, ready to end both hunters and their whole scheme. Fernan shuts down the demon's smug speech, and the room turns icy. The cavern widens into a deadlock, with Gardner and the fiend sizing things up. Then Fernan's pressure snaps forward, cracking the calm like cheap glass. The possessed bastard lunges at Ain't, desperate to make this personal. Ain't stays locked in, because panic would just feed the monster. The demon flashes that gross confidence again, like it still owns the fight, but the counterstrike lands hard, and even Gardner catches the real danger. Now the masked fiend dives through the void, all arrogance and bad timing. Red and black blows explode everywhere, turning the cave into a disaster. And Gardner stands ready, realizing this circus has become a kill zone. Fernan's name keeps surfacing, and even the room can't hide the shock, because that movement clearly costs mana, yet has somehow still ahead. Every blast proves he was dangerous before, and now has terrifying. The scale of it hits hard, turning confident spectators into nervous extras, while the possessed bastard keeps grinning, convinced this mess still favors him. But Fernan ruins that fantasy fast, and Gardner finally clocks the real threat, because the demon's smirk is all bluff, and the line is collapsing. Gardner shuts down the childish posturing, stepping in like it's overdue. The corrupted fool still boasts about beating a kid, which is adorable, until Fernan answers with that smug little stare, making the joke land elsewhere. A crimson magic circle blooms, and the warning hits like a verdict. The possessed fool finally realizes his standing inside Fernan's trap. Then the battlefield explodes. As Fernan quietly owns the whole sky, Gardner reacts first, because even he can see the smugness collapsing. The demon lunges for a killing blow, and gets flattened instead. Purple impact and collapsing steel make his confidence look painfully outdated. Now he's stammering over Fernan using flame without any artifact, while Fernan just smirks, like this was never worth bragging about, because his real specialty is flame magic, and apparently humiliation. So the bastard screams threats, and Fernan answers with mocking contempt. Fernan pins the demon hard, ordering it to stay still, and it obeys. Then he seals the space with a smug, purple trap and zero mercy. The monster begs for its handler, but Fernan only tightens the pressure, while Ain't watches, because apparently the kid's pain still isn't enough. Holy water comes out next, and the demon finally realizes the joke. Fernan grins like a man pricing suffering, then calmly explains the burn. The creature starts cracking, and his smile says this was always planned. Every gasp leaks blood as the demon's bravado collapses into panic. Now the spell turns brutal, holy fire chewing through its insides, and the last threat dies screaming, because Fernan still won't talk. Fernan locks onto the demon's mana heart, and the smug monster finally trembles, while Ain't watches that cruelty unfold, because mercy died somewhere off-screen. Then holy water hits the weak point, and the creature's big talk curdles. As Fernan reminds it, he's not ending this fast, just humiliating it slowly. The demon learns too late that its precious power, honor, and family leverage mean nothing, because Fernan already decided the creature will lose everything, exactly on schedule. The pressure turns vicious, red-black force chewing through flesh, and bravado, until the thing starts cracking apart, leaking blood like a bad investment, and Fernan keeps staring, completely unbothered, while the collapse becomes a massacre. By the end, only panic remains, and even that looks embarrassingly late. In the ravine, Gardner is still catching his breath when Fernan's name rings out. Then the burning, stabbing, shredding spectacle makes his humiliation look medically impressive. Gardner's terror spikes as he realizes this monster is standing far too close, and Fernan just keeps that bored face. Like mercy never made the shortlist. Even the objections sound ridiculous now, because this cruelty target is absurdly strong. With infinite mana, twin elements, and battlefield control that makes everyone else look amateur. So when Fernan tears into the demon, the whole room starts calling it art, while he dismisses the moral panic as sentimental whining over a dependable ally. Gardner tries to argue about principles, but gets steamrolled by the past, and suddenly Fernan Pellenberg is the favorite, which is hilarious. Fernan casually seals the wound, then promises a guild physician later, while Ain't panics about exposure, and Fernan treats secrecy like obvious business. Then the so-called debt gets brushed off as alliance, not charity. As they reach the relic chamber, Fernan explains the Emperor buried demon traps, and, of course, he acts clueless while already knowing every detail. The blood-locked mechanism only reacts to Armand blood, which is painfully convenient. So they descend into the hidden passage, where the whole room suddenly feels smaller. Ain't asks permission to enter, and Fernan grants it like a king, then praises his survival before dropping a savage theory about fire magic. Basically, the man could have been stronger, but he chose style over sense. Fernan treats mineral hunting like commerce, because muscles never impressed merchants. Ain't asks about the demon corpse, and the answer gets commercially grim. Fernan laughs off the corpse, claiming the order loved the research material. Then he drops the reality check. Those psychos literally quartered it. Ain't plays innocent, but the hidden worry screams through the silence. At the relic chamber, Fernan casually points out the Emperor's trap. The foundation relic is just sword decor, until the bloodlock activates. Below the chamber, the demon mural looms like a warning written in purple. Fernan names the beast as the 72nd demon, Andromalius, with zero fear, and just like that, the smug merchant prince turns demon hunter. Fernan hears the 71st demon's name, Dantalion, and barely blinks. While Ain't watches the tension spike, Fernan explains demon factions, casually, then he drops imperial history, and the founding emperor's old trap, a relic flicker confirms it, because this sword was never decoration. Fernan cracks the seal, and the hidden power answers his touch, which makes the blonde senior look ridiculous for even doubting him. Fernan shrugs off the praise, acting like saving lives was routine. Then he refuses any reward, because apparently debts are for amateurs. The whole crowd gushes over Fernan Pellenberg, now wearing legend-like cloaks, and he shuts it down, saying a knight repays debts, period. So now the spoiled genius starts dangling a favor, dripping with smug generosity, and the black-haired kid immediately gets greedy, which is honestly adorable, because the first demand is simple. Those magic lanterns, counted from the entrance, and apparently 100 of them is now basic treasure, because subtlety died here. The blonde skeptic tries to act unimpressed, but luxury clearly broke his resolve, while Fernan treats expensive toys like pocket change, promising mercenary cash later. The black-haired kid accepts the haul, and Fernan calls him naive with a smile. Then comes the grand thank you pile, because everyone suddenly worships Fernan's wallet. Fernan still questions whether hell really do mercenary work, like this isn't a transaction, and the answer lands coldly. Training first, payment later, because business is business. Fernan decides mercenary work is perfect for building experience. Naturally, while Ain't stares blankly, clutching loot like he just survived another scam, then the vacation order drops. 70 days of freedom disguised as training, and Fernan calmly recommends real danger, because classroom safety was never the point. The demon talk follows, and he thanks Ain't for dragging him into this mess, then mocks the academy's limits, as if trouble were some premium elective. Ain't gets warned to run, sweat and all, because danger keeps orbiting him, and Fernan checks on his head. Like concern and manipulation share the same chair, the whole speech boils down to mercenary grinding, demons, and one very doomed kid. So the scene ends on sunlight and books, with disaster clearly already scheduled. Comments got killed off, and the bookish silence turns suspiciously triumphant, while Fernan's reputation lingers like a bad omen in the library, because the moment his name drops, everyone remembers the disaster he walked through, and the shock only grows when that same smug genius reappears, unbothered, leaving the room to spiral over how he supposedly erased that menace. Even Ain't's improvement gets dragged in, as if survival were a neat hobby, since Fernan's deal with danger sounds easier than anyone else's nightmare, and his expression sells the usual nonsense. Clearly, this was effortless, so the gossip mutates into legend, from yacht club demons to transport massacres, with the final takeaway simple: Fernan keeps winning, and everyone else just reacts. Was he hiding real power, or just embarrassing everyone beautifully? Because the legend says Fernan botched the plan, then somehow survived anyway. Now the council admits he belongs beside Ain't Armin. And that's terrifying, since they even consider killing him first if the chance looks profitable, yet the room whispers they were already exposed, which is hilarious. because Ain't and Fernan now know the Academy's dirty little secret, meaning the enemy might be gathering forces before the whole world notices, so the only sane move, apparently, is striking first and panicking later. Fernan's glare makes that blood-soaked priority sound almost offensively calm, while Ain't gets compared to his bodyguard, and somehow still looks weaker. The Academy's overprotective instinct gets mocked instantly, since Fernan's working mercenary duty, and the target turns out to be Barus Diener. 4th-ranked first year, very impressive, very unlucky, so naturally the question becomes whether maiming him is still acceptable, because standards are apparently negotiable, while Fernan shrugs off the whole issue and frames injury like a charming job perk, since future prophecy nonsense says Barus will become Ain't Armin's close friend anyway, which makes this bodyguard arrangement sound less like kindness and more like expensive survival insurance, and Fernan deadpans that Ain't should never realize his protector is there, charmingly evil timing. Then the payment reveal nearly breaks Barus' brain, because money always wins where honor gets confused, since the payout is absurd enough to make the Pellenbergs look hilariously untouchable, and everybody knows it, so Barus bows out, promising not to disappoint, while Fernan keeps that smug little disaster grin. Once finals end, the Academy finally breathes, bright and stupidly relieved, though some stragglers stay buried in work, because home was apparently worse, and others cling to protecting the mother tree, like that excuse pays rent, while Fernan casually promises to research the new demon corpse, because of course he does. Then Rowena gets roped in, acting innocent while everyone wonders if she meant it, only to announce she is going home, leaving Fernan to ask about her return, and he neatly schedules that comeback 2 weeks before semester start. Very convenient, because right before that, Andromalius gets summoned, and Luina is forced into battle, so Fernan asks if she is headed out too, while he claims work at home. Then he hands over a communication earring, sealing the deal like a smug little merchant. The earring drops into view, a tiny luxury with absurdly huge range, because apparently 3 kilometers is how rich kids call emergencies now, and Fernan treats it like a battlefield tool, not jewelry, then calmly buys himself 2 months. Like schedules bend for him, Rowena takes the hint, pockets the case, and tries looking unbothered, but the whole room knows Fernan gave her something that matters. So when she hears his back, she instantly starts packing for home, leaving behind that polished mansion like it was merely a pit stop, while the servant wonders what urgent nonsense stole his attention, and Fernan's family already suspects he skipped praise for secret business. The professors start side-eyeing Fernan, and his little project gets dragged back into daylight. Of course, he says it is difficult, because apparently genius now needs a calendar. Then everyone starts wondering who he even plans to dump it on. Naturally suspicious. Nobody is sure yet, so the gossip machine keeps chewing through his mystery, while Fernan's people decide to keep watching him like he is profitable trouble. That means Barus Diener gets picked for the job, because Fernan is busy, and the guild logic is deliciously simple. Expensive nights everywhere, but trust wins. Jace pushes back, acting offended that hiring him was supposedly the first conversation, yet Fernan shrugs that Ain't Armin is not some easy prey to snatch. So yes, the bodyguard cost money, because apparently surviving Ain't takes budget. Fernan stays ice cold, acting like the future is already his private investment. Ain't barely survives the demon chaos, proving prophecy books are glorified fanfiction, and Fernan admits the real threat is chasing his life now, so he starts talking bigger future disasters, with the kind of calm that scares people. Then the demonic pressure turns uglier, because Andromalius is clearly not done playing. That's why he leaves the room like he owns the apocalypse, while everyone stares. Even the noble onlooker gets dragged into the mood, because Fernan's confidence is insulting. Next comes the weapon talk, meaning Fernan wants a merchant-grade cheat code, not a sword. And somehow the sea route and open continent both scream bigger trouble ahead, so the blue spirit warning lands last. Like the world itself is running out of patience. The harbor beast swarms ahead, and Fernan calls that disaster-perfect training, then dares Ain't to get nervous, because losing once clearly bruised his ego, while the boy jokes it off, and the ship keeps sliding into Ramon's, that's Frasia's mercenary harbor, where Fernan plans to register and weaponize opportunity, because first year means nothing to him, just another tier to bully. So he strolls into the guild hall and announces the mercenary test with terrifying confidence. The receptionist barely blinks, asks his name and ID, and gets Ain't instead. Then Fernan flashes the academy card like a cheat code from heaven, and the clerk coolly decides a student ID is enough, asking his year, because first years start at tier 4, unless Fernan decides to break the system. Fernan cuts in mid-brag, deciding the tests are beneath him. The guild clerk instantly crowns Barus as the year's best, and Barus grins. So Fernan registers him at tier 3, because of course he already guessed right. Then he casually drafts him into the Avalar raid, and the poor clerk just nods. Around the room, the guild hall freezes as Fernan keeps recruiting like it's a shopping list. When Avalar comes up, he acts like it's some ordinary side quest, not a massacre. Fernan even asks what raid he meant, pretending he didn't just control the whole board. The answer is ugly, a monster-infested wasteland crawling with nearly 500 beasts. That danger only makes him smile harder, because bigger carnage means bigger rewards. And like a menace in a cape, he sells war as the perfect training opportunity. Fernan coolly commits to joining the Avalar raid, already owning the conversation, and that polished boot drop says Hez not asking, Hez drafting. While the servant checks his condition, half concerned he's been awake for days, Fernan waves it off, then starts blaming Lord Landguard's non-stop whining instead, because somehow that smug red-eyed grin still shows up whenever business turns profitable, and the room instantly feels the shift, like everyone just noticed his appetite for trouble. When a stranger questions him, he looks anything but family, which is hilarious. Then the noble clocks the Duke's office and wonders who tipped him off. Fernan only smirks harder, already sensing his father's shadow closing in nearby. And now even the cautious observer admits this menace is coming straight this way. The sharp-eyed man finally recognizes him, and that smug certainty lands first, because Fernan's red sigil answer keeps his gaze steady, almost annoyingly calm, while the servant rushes in, reporting the household panic with polished urgency, and the poor witness near him looks absolutely wrecked, as if reality cracked. Then the so-called mercenary king gets named, and the air turns expensive, since even Garrett Shriner has to explain himself after forgetting basic respect, which is when they address young Pellenberg directly, like the kid owns the room, and the confirmation drops. Tier 3 mercenary. Ain't. Officially stamped in, as the battlefield snaps into chaos behind them, bodies and debris flying everywhere, but Fernan only exhales, because of course this trouble was always his. The academy cafeteria was nicer, because this place reeks of mercenary poverty, yet Baru still keeps serving smugness, while Fernan tests his appetite, and the old veteran crew gets introduced like a business deal, not allies, with Ain't staring blankly, clearly realizing this field is already corrupted, but Baru still offers him space, because talent beats pedigree, and Fernan casually stamps him as an Armin, which is hilarious, since Ain't admits he has nothing to prove, only raw potential. Then the ranking talk turns surgical, and everyone starts recalculating him, because jumping from 38th to 1st in a semester is absurd, so of course they accept the offer, and call it veteran wisdom. Even the recruit is warning about the prince, because politics loves a trap, and this scarred veteran laughs off royalty like it's background noise, so they seal the deal with a fist bump, not friendship, just terms, while the old injury line vanishes, leaving only raw calluses and nerve. Then Fernan drags Ain't into the crew, making the handshake look inevitable, with Hector casually ordering the march, as if danger were a schedule, and the forest answer echoes back, turning the whole alliance into momentum, because they'll trail the royal army, not out of fear, but timing. Then Hector introduces himself like a man too tired to perform manners, and Ain't finally answers, as if everybody somehow deserved the warning. Hector greets Fernan's reputation like a joke that already landed, while the blonde recruit mocks humility, then cashes in on trust. Ain't keeps it dry, promising the crew has no easy leak, and the blonde kid cuts the nonsense, barking for an emergency, because monsters just got spotted. And surprise, the countryside hates downtime, so the whole line snaps into battle posture, front rank greed replacing manners. Hector hands Ain't a roll, like he's finally worth the trouble. Then the battlefield tightens as Fernan sizes up the chaos ahead, and the charge hits so hard, the forest turns into flying casualties, with Hector roaring for spears, because subtlety died 5 panels ago. Spears fly on command, and Fernan turns panic into paid obedience. Then the front line slams forward, horses and bodies buckling under momentum. The attackers scream for a kill, and the charge answers rudely. Even the monsters get shoved back, because subtlety already died earlier. Fernan's crew keeps pressing, while Hector refuses any idiot retreat. Ain't watches the blonde commander and realizes this is professional carnage. The speech about knights and losers lands like a smug masterpiece. Now the mercenary king's disciple and his legion finally feel real. Across the field, the ink-black spear legion claims the battlefield, fully. The mercenary line keeps thundering forward, all muscle and no mercy, while the blonde youth just stares, suddenly realizing this crew means business, and the hooded braggart keeps laughing, mocking nerves like a cheap trick, until the rag gets handed over, because apparently battlefield manners still exist. The blonde one panics over the filthy cloth, which is adorable, honestly, but Fernan shrugs it off, saying blood is just cleanup after monster butchery. Then a letter from the captain interrupts the whole victory lap, and everyone freezes, as Fernand orders the formation onward, promising extra payment for the trouble. So the monsters split apart, and the smart ones move on their own. The mercenary map comes out, and suddenly even Panic has a regrouping plan, while Ain't gets told to trail them, like this hunt is somehow casual, and the blonde kid finally gets permission, which is almost hilarious, because the whole crew keeps moving through the woods like paid professionals. After a long day, the campfire truth is ugly, and everybody looks cooked. Then Bruce asks the obvious question, and the answer is basically, not great, with Fernand still grinning like monster death is just overtime, because the count is worse than expected, and the road keeps stretching out, so he decides they should keep pushing, since waiting would be even dumber. The forest floor erupts in fire, and the night turns feral, with the blast swallowing everything like chaos finally got paid. Then the smoke thins, and Fernand sits there smugly, because even after the ambush, he's still treating ruin like business. Bruce catches the scene and immediately realizes the monster count is ugly. While Fernand's cold stare says Panic is for amateurs and dead men, the mercenaries lock in around him, and the whole line keeps moving, as Ain't watches every step like a lesson nobody bothered to label, and the advance continues, because waiting here would be even dumber. Ain't's eyes widen as the battlefield suddenly rewrites itself, and a golden strike tears through the dark like arrogant insurance, while Fernand keeps cutting through danger with disgustingly calm efficiency. Bruce catches the panic, and the mercenaries start moving instantly, because even Ain't can see this blonde nuisance just block death. The leader's smug certainty only grows, which is honestly unbearable, as the possessed brute gets carved open and starts ranting excuses. Even the veterans stare at that monstrosity, suddenly not so brave, so the order becomes simple. Haul the weak out and keep advancing. The demon finally loses its smug grin, and the hunt turns ugly, as Ain't sizes up the stranger and wonders who this menace really is, while Fernand brushes off the warning, calling it an evil species with chilling ease. Then the mercenaries mock the panic and promise this job now pays better, which is exactly the kind of greed that makes battlefield professionals embarrassingly useful, because once the truth lands, nobody wants to be the first corpse, and even that roaring brute starts screaming about worthlessness when pressure closes in, before a brutal strike punches straight through its eye, and silence snaps tight, leaving the monster convulsing, wounded. The possessed brute finally bares its fangs, hurling insults, but Fernand just smirks, and when the monster taunts his dodge, the answer is pure aristocratic contempt. Then a bald mercenary swings in, proving greed really does sharpen reflexes, as the brown-haired partner mocks the enemy's special species nonsense, very professionally, but the creature keeps snarling threats, calling everyone worthless like that ever ages well, until the whole squad closes in, and even its own confidence starts collapsing, when a spear tears through the darkness, turning swagger into screaming panic, and the monster gets pinned by a storm of spirit lances, convulsing hard, with one final piercing hit that leaves the beast ruined, bleeding, and quiet. The ambush finally cracks open here, and the beast's smugness starts leaking out. Fernand answers the chaos with pure contempt. While the strike lands like judgment, the monster still claws back, pretending it's special, which is adorable, but the counterattack hits harder, and its confidence folds into panic. Even the mercenaries pile in, because greed apparently sharpens timing beautifully. One spear catches it clean, and the beast starts screaming instead of posturing. The pressure only worsens as spirit lances pin it down like garbage. That one down victory cry lands right before another brutal finishing blow. By the end, the monster is ruined, bleeding, and embarrassingly quiet. Red sigils slam down hard, and the monster's bravado starts cracking. Beneath the academy's polished walls, where Panic usually thinks it owns the room, Fernand just stares through it all, because apparently fear is for amateurs. While the household reports arrive claiming Garrett's people have met disaster, Ain't Armin is left blinking at the chaos, looking personally offended by reality, as the signal from those dead serious eyes says this problem is already judged, because Garrett's disciple, once shattered in battle, still crawls into the legend, and the beast, now pinned and bleeding, finally stops pretending it's dangerous, right before Fernand's next strike makes that arrogance disappear completely.